And we are live. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Cameron Hayes. This is my co-host, Ashton Johnson, and welcome to the Shootin' the Breeze podcast. Tonight, we have Chad Sims on with us. Chad, tell the people, hey.
Hello. Howdy, howdy.
All right, so introduce the guest and how we met. Chad, how did we meet?
Well, we met at one of the quantified performance matches.
We
if I remember
did.
correctly. So that was that the one before this time, or was that a little while back? I can't remember. I lose track of time because I'm getting old.
Same. That was actually two quantified performance matches ago because I went to the first one and then went to the second one. And me and you were squatted together on the second one.
That's right.
And then on the third one, I had to miss it because I had to go play Army. And then this most recent one, we were at that one, but we weren't squatted together.
That's right, because I met you over by the house. We were shooting some targets out there in that field about 400 yards away from the garage. Is that right?
Correct. And my nerdy ass was like, "You're the guy." And you were like, "I am the guy."
I'm just a normal guy, man. Just a well-known normal guy, just like Eric. So that's what we always say anyways.
Well, we like to start off the podcast by telling the viewers that if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. We will answer them at the end unless it is applicable to what we're talking about currently. Okay. So first things first, who are you? Who is Chad Sims?
I'm just a guy. I'm a gray man. I'm a family man. I run the Iraq Veteran 8888 YouTube channel with my good buddy Eric. We've been doing it full time now for, gosh, I guess about 6 or 7 years, I suppose. 2013, 2014, right around that time. Had some ups and downs with it, just growing along. And, I've got children. I've got a giant garden. I'm a man of many hobbies and talents, I guess. Maybe a few that are better than others, but a lot of people don't know that I've been into music my whole life. I've been into electronics my whole life. I just got into ham radio, so we do the gun stuff. So we kind of do a little bit of everything. If you hear anything in the background, it's probably my children, because I am just in an open office here trying to survive. But yeah, man, that's me. I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy who likes guns, and we film and we shoot guns and we test suppressors, and I get nerdy like that. I nerd out on wildcats and figuring out how things work, and I get mad when things don't work like they're supposed to, like we'll talk about with the match. So, but I'm just a dude, man.
It do be like that sometimes. Yeah, it is really awesome whenever you go to matches like the QP match and stuff like that, and you meet all these dudes, and you just assume that like everybody there is some special forces operator or some fucking like super high speed guy who works for the CIA and he's just a face shooter or something like that. And then you get to talking to them and they're like me, like I make CNC programs in a granite factory. Like that's my 9 to 5. That is my regular day job. Actually, now I work a 5-axis manual CNC saw. So that's my day job. That's my regular 9 to 5. Ashton, he works for a power line company, and he does something important for them. I'm not really sure, but he does something important. But yeah, we regular ass people. We just like guns. Well, actually, Ashton likes fishing more than he likes guns these days, it seems.
Well, I like fishing now. Eric and I haven't been in a while. We mainly do inshore type stuff for saltwater species. So we go down to the Gulf Coast and we hang out kind of around the Panhandle, and we go and fish in 2 feet of water. For big old red drum, big old trout. And I actually have some of those in my freezer.
Hell yeah. Me and Ashton just went fishing in like 2 feet of water. But what were we doing, Ashton?
Bow fishing for catfish and carp.
We were bow fishing. Yeah, that was my first time doing that. It was dope.
Yeah, I went bow fishing with the crew out at Ackless Defense. We were in Baton Rouge, and we drove down to somewhere in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a bog, it seemed, and we were on this loud airboat with like a Chevy 350 on it or something crazy, and we were bow fishing for giant gar, and we hooked gar, we hooked like black drum, like all kinds of crazy stuff. I got a big old raspberry on my arm, I mean, it was the size of a softball. I mean, but it was a good time. The first time I ever did anything like that. But,
Yeah, anytime I tell people that we went bow fishing, they're like, "Oh, were you shooting alligator gar?" And I'm like, "Nah, catfish." And they're like, "Fucking what?" Yeah, it was fun. We got two catfish. Actually, his son got a huge one. His son smoked a giant catfish, and then shortly thereafter, I got one, and I taught his kids how to skin a catfish on the boat. So that was pretty cool.
wait, you didn't have a tree to tie it to?
or peg it too. I taught Ashton how to skin a catfish by pegging it to a tree and skinning it while we were drinking.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was probably an interesting experience.
It was suppressed 22 pistols and all kinds of fun stuff. But anyway, all right. So one of the most important questions that we ask on the podcast, Ashton, you want to ask it or you want me to?
Gas or bolt?
Gas or bolt? Well, I don't know. I'd have to say that I probably use a gas gun more than I use a bolt gun. So.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I think you're just inviting people on that are gas gunners.
You know what? The first 4 episodes we did, they were all bolt gun, bolt gun, bolt gun. And I was like, we've moved on past the horse and buggy, modern technology. Use that gas gun, dog.
Look, my thing with gas guns is as many encounters as you might find yourself in, how many will you probably only need to shoot 100 yards or less? So do you really need a bolt gun for that? I mean, I use a lever gun to hunt with most of the time, or my 300 blackout. I mean, I don't think I've ever used a bolt action to hunt, except when I was 10, shooting a sporterized infield number 3. So
I made a mistake going
one Mark 3.
Going hog hunting with a 308 bolt action with a 3-9 on it. That was a mistake because I did not know that they would legit would charge you. So I'm over here
there might be herds of hogs out there. I've seen guys with thermal set up, and they have 50 hogs in this field, and they're just picking them off one after the other. You can't do that with a bolt action.
It was my first time. All right,
but I will say, precision wise, I mean, it's difficult to beat a good quality bolt action, but gas gun all the way for anything that I need for the most part.
Mm-hmm. You hear that, Ashton? What's the tally up to now? What are we at right now? 500 million for gas gun and 4 for bolt gun?
It don't matter. It's skewed. You're the one inviting the guests.
Well, if you'd invite some motherfuckers, then maybe it'd go more your way. Or maybe
he did invite me.
It might backfire.
He did invite me at a gas gun match to come onto the podcast. So I mean,
we ain't got to tell him that.
It's a little skewed.
It is slightly skewed. All right. So what is you were just talking about Wildcat, so I'm hoping there's one in here. What is your favorite rifle chambering? And for the love of God, don't say fucking 224 Valkyrie, that train wreck of a rifle cartridge.
Oh, that was my favorite to hate, maybe.
There you go.
But, I mean, 3,000 plus rounds down the pipe, and never performed up to the expectations that were advertised.
I've got two friends that have both been on the podcast that are 224 Valkyrie guys. They love. You actually met one of them, Chris Roberts. You met him at the match. He's a big time 224 Valkyrie guy, and the other guy is a special forces dude, and he likes his. But those are the only 2 guys who I know who like 224 Valkyrie.
All right, so I've said this before in other videos that we've done on the subject, but the problem that I had with Valkyrie is, it was advertised as being a 90 grain pill running a certain speed out of a gas gun and performing a certain way. So I did everything in my power to get the 90 grainers to run right. I tried a couple of different rifles chambered in 224 with the 1-in-7 twist, like the factory offered. I tried all kinds of factory ammunition. I tried all sorts of different projectiles, optimal charge weight test, ladder test, the whole 9 yards. Could never get it to shoot well. Switched to a 6.5 twist barrel. The 90s started boom, boom, like half MOA, half MOA, half MOA all day long. And I never could get past the brass issue. I mean, I literally would get 2 firings and I'd have to cull half of my brass or better. I literally could get only 3 firings out of it, what was available at the time. And this was 2-3 years ago when we were working with that. And that's when I actually discovered the 6AR. but that's kind of a whole nother thing. But my favorite cartridge, like overall, 5.56. I mean, you can do nearly anything you need to do with a 5.56. And I come from, the standpoint of like, okay, predator hunting, hog hunting, even medium game hunting to survive, and also the defensive properties of 5.56 are just you can't beat it. It's just a good all around cartridge, a do-all cartridge. The platforms that shoot 5.56 are excellent. I mean, you cannot beat a good solid AR as a do-all rifle to do anything that you need to do. So, I mean, easy 5.56. And I haven't even studied these questions. This is just off the top of my head. So
yeah, no, I get it. My 5.56 gas gun that I ran one in precision rifle matches forever. Obviously, everybody uses a 5.56 for 3-gun and like truck gun kind of shit and whatever. Like basically, I was all 5.56 for just about everything. Then later on, it kind of changed. I'm a really big fan of 6.5 Grendel. I like 6.5 Grendel a lot. I ran a 12-inch Grendel for a lot of stuff. But I've got a new favorite now, obviously. But
oh yeah, I mean obviously. But so the 6.5 Grendel, I considered actually turning my 12.5-inch blackout that I have that I've used for hunting. I use 110 grain Barnes projectiles over H110, and it's a great cartridge. It really is for that purpose. And these things are running like 2,340 feet per second, so it's a devastating load. Okay, on deer and such and like hogs. But I considered switching that rig over to like 6.8 spec or a 6.5 Grendel, just for the hunting aspect of it. So I don't have to hand load. I can just stock up on some factory ammunition and just kind of keep that thing sitting in the side with the thermal. So when we go hog hunting, or I can pull the thermal off, I could put my regular day optic back on there. It's within half MOA. It's anything I need to shoot a deer in Georgia. Because, I mean, Georgia deer, I'm not shooting over 100 yards typically where we hunt. I mean, food plots and things like that. I don't need to take a 400 or 500 yard shot with some 300 short action ultra, in your pants Magnum. Okay? I don't
super
need
calm.
it. Yeah,
super
I just
calm.
yeah. There's just no point in it. Not for what we do in Georgia. I mean, how many deer have been killed across the country, especially in the South, with a 30-30?
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to beat. So. But anyways, I was interested in 6.5 Grendel, but how does it perform out of the 12.5-inch barrel? Because I've never seen anybody who's actually done good chronograph work with it, except maybe you. I mean,
yeah. Hey. So out of my 12-inch, I've got multiple 12-inch Grendels now because I bought the first one, or I got sent the first one from PSA to evaluate for them, and I at first they were like, "Hey, do you want a 12-inch 6.5 Grendel?" And my response was literally, "Why the fuck would I want a 12-inch 6.5 Grendel?" And I was like, "Well, let me play around with some numbers here." So I already had a 22-inch Grendel at the time. So I started, playing with some numbers, trying to figure out, like what kind of velocity I could get, and like the BC of the projectiles that I was running, and trying to extrapolate some kind of terminal effect I could possibly, induce on a target for, let's say, deer or man or whatever, something roughly 200 pounds in red blood. And I was like, so I started playing with the numbers, and I was like, man, that would do awesome out of a 12-inch. And out of my 12-inch, I was getting like 2250 or something like that out of the 123 SSTs.
That's pretty respectable.
Yeah, and that's regular 12-inch. So I took my 12-inch with a primary arms 1-6 on it, and that's my deer hunting gun, or at least it was last year. I popped a deer with it at 175 yards.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Using 123 grain SSTs, and she like walked right into the woods and then dropped. So yeah, it's effective. It's pretty awesome. I'm a big fan of the shorty Grendels.
Well, I've killed a hog at like 175 yards out in Texas with a 9-inch blackout with supers.
Nice.
So it does its job quite well with a 150 grain pill. So,
all right. So next question is dial or hold?
Both.
Okay. So you're probably like Ash. So Ash, explain what you do at a competition or whatever, like for your dial hold method.
Mostly it's holding, unless it's a known stage with known distances and there's some targets that are all lined up. amongst the same, or I know the closest target is 400. I'll go ahead and dial to that one and hold the rest. Correct my thing.
Yep.
Yeah, is that what you were about to say?
Exactly. So it depends on the stage. So if you're talking about competitive shooting, yes, you if you got a first target at 400 yards, you dial to whatever that hold is, and then you just do the math and you figure out what your actual holds are going to be to compensate for the other ranges, like 700, 800, 900 yards, or whatever it is. As far as like a practical application, if you're running a grid reticle and you're only shooting like 300 yards, like with something like a 5.56, you can literally use the grid within that first mill as like a BDC. You just know where to hold to get out to like 300 or even out to like maybe 400 or 500 yards, depending on the cartridge. You don't even have to worry about getting out of like 2 mils on some stuff, especially, some of the 6s and 6.5s and everything like that. You can easily be within 2 mils at 400 yards. So it really depends on the situation. But if it's one known target, obviously you're going to dial all the way to that known target. Now I do not dial for wind. I don't put in wind when I go to shoot anything. I just hold for wind because it's always constantly changing, especially at arena. I mean, this last match, it was just awful. I feel so bad about what I did, my preparation. It's just I'm beating myself up about it still.
You needed a shower, right? Like as soon as the match was over, you're like, I gotta wash this off.
Oh man, I got an email from one of the guys on our squad. There was one of the girlfriends of one of the other guys on the squad was taking some pictures with his camera. He emailed me some pictures. I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to remember this in photos this time. It was bad. Oh man, it was awful. But me and Ashton differ, and I differ from most other people. Regardless of if I know the distance to target or not, I hold for everything. So because I was shooting the 6 Cheetah, which is going to be rebranded. It's going to be called the 6mm Haze soon. I was shooting the 6 Cheetah, so even out to 1,000 yards, I was still right at 10 mils, and I had that in my scope. So I didn't need to dial for anything. I did holds for everything for the entire match. My thing is I don't like to hold so much. I like to hold as little as possible. So it's just a little bit less chance of error for me because I'm not shooting long range a lot, and I don't really sit out and practice a whole lot. So I just try to alleviate some of that math and have it hold so deep in the reticle, and you can easily get lost. That's my feeling about it. Yeah,
it's quicker that way. The less you have to start counting up to hold over, the better.
Yeah, instead of having to worry about holding 10, you have to worry about holding 4 or 7. Like one stage at 1,000, I wound up having to hold like 7 at 1,000, and I dialed for the 500-yard target. It was like stage 1, I think, over there on the left of the KD range. Yeah, we were shooting like 1,004, and then 817 some change, and then like 500 and some change. I didn't hit a thing. My zero was off and everything.
That transitions right into our next one. What is your long range experience?
Not a whole lot. So when we've been shooting on my family property for the longest time, with the channel and all, and we've constantly kind of improved things. And for a long time, we were only shooting about 300 yards, and very occasionally we could go out and shoot further. We decided to build a shooting tower, on kind of a back piece of the property in one of our fields. And with Georgia, the terrain goes like this. So it's like just hills and hills and hills and big old terraces and things and lots of trees everywhere. So it's kind of hard to get a long-range shot if you don't go up. So we built a tower up 16 foot, and it's like a 12 by 12 deck, and we could shoot 611 yards. So we started shooting like milsurps and things like that with iron sights and just being really crazy and challenging, shooting 22s, like this sort of thing out there, just being dumb. But as far as practical rifle application, I started shooting things out there a little bit more. Excuse me, where I'd never shot that far, and I wanted to learn how to dial and hold and things and read wind a little bit better. And I was trying to do some of this stuff myself. A buddy of mine, Jonathan Roberts, you may know him as the Tactical Nomad or Ballistic X. So he's the owner of Ballistic X. And he invited me down to a long-range hunting class at Barber Creek with James Eaglewood a while back. And went down there for this class, and I learned so much about long-range shooting, it was not even funny. Just all the different variables and things that affect a bullet in flight. Basically things that are out of Brian Litz's applied ballistics, publications, and just practical applications thereof. How to actually dial in a load and confirm it at long range, how to read wind using the Mirage. James has a really awesome method for reading the Mirage and knowing what the wind's doing. And he takes shooters out there. I mean, myself included, I'd never really shot a very small target at 1,000. And I was shooting golf balls at 1,000 yards with his wind calls and their rifles. So I hear about people shooting like these world record bench rest groups of like 1.5-inch groups or 3-inch groups or whatever at 1,000 yards. And I'm like, that's just like a hand loaders game. It's just everything's like a carbon copy of the other, and they're big old heavy, like 50-pound guns. Now this was like a 10-pound hunting rifle. And we were shooting clay pigeons out there just with boring regularity. And that really got me sparked with long range stuff. And when you shoot 1,000, you kind of have to shoot further. So we've done some stuff out to a mile with 338 Lapua. Not quite with the proper setup, but I have taken some mile shots. But I wish that I was able to shoot long range a little bit more readily, had a place to shoot that was closer than Barber Creek or Arena, because those are 2 and 3 hours away from me. And it's just that's kind of my long range experience. I'm still learning a lot, and I read a lot, and I try to sit at the range and read the Mirage as much as I can, but without a good platform to be able to like read the Mirage, shoot, and confirm with a spotter and stuff out there, really figure out what I'm doing. I learn a few things, but then I have to get busy with other stuff, and then they wind up kind of becoming fleeting thoughts, and then I have to relearn things as I go on. I'm a family man, and I just got so much other stuff going on. I wish I could focus on one aspect of firearm ownership, like long range shooting, like ELR, like I focus on everything else, but I have to kind of divide up my time. So, like I said, average guy. I mean, nobody special. I'm not some uber crazy PRS shooter or anything like that. Uber successful PRS shooter, competitive shooter. I mean, this is literally like this last weekend was literally my 6th match that I've ever shot, and 2 of those are rimfire matches. So,
like NRL 22 matches.
Not specifically NRL. The local range up north of us, Red Hill, that's where we've done a lot of our YouTube events. They put on a couple of like PRS style 22 matches, but we were only shooting out to like 104 yards. So it's kind of crazy positions and stuff, but I was shooting my wood stocked CZ 455. That's got the Tico barrel that my buddy Kyle over at KG Made produced for me several years back. It's a integrally suppressed barrel with basically you got 10.5 inches of rifling, and then the rest of the 22-inch barrel is all a monocore suppressor baffle with a titanium tube over it. And I was out there competing with those guys and placing in the top 10, out of, I don't know, like 80 guys that were out there. I think I was like 4th one time I did it, the second time I did it. But it's a lot of fun, and it's real challenging. We did like the Know Your Limits stage at like 35 yards. So the smallest target is literally like the size of your fingernail. And, if you don't hit it, you don't get any of the points. And we were shooting targets that were 2 inches at 100 yards through like the window of a car that we had blown up, the month prior at the shoot. Just all kinds of crazy stages. You had to shoot off of a tiny little picnic table, like a kid's picnic table, from the top, the middle, and the bottom. And you couldn't get under the bottom and hold your rifle up, so you had to shoot from the side. And I had no idea how to do that. So, but it's all learning experience, man.
It's funny that you say something about shooting through a window. I was teaching a class because I teach like designated marksman classes and precision rifle classes and stuff like that. And one of the things that, like, if you're like shooting from a hide or something like that, is you have your near zero and far zero so that you can shoot through a loophole. And one of the things that I did to try to like mess with my students was I put a car on the range that wasn't very far from the shooter. And instinctually, with everything that about, marksmanship pertaining to stability, is the lower to the ground you are, the more stable you are.
Sure.
So naturally, the shooters were wanting to get like really low on this car, like in the window, to where they could like shoot through the car was a ways away from the actual shooters. Okay. So everybody was trying to get super low down on the car, and I did it on purpose because the target was like 600 yards away. So whenever they would try to shoot the target, it would actually impact the roof of the car. For most shooters, not all of them, it would impact the roof of the car. instead of going through the window like they thought it was because they're just looking through their scope, you know?
Sure, they don't realize that the bullet is actually arcing in and it's arcing into the top of the car, more or
Yeah.
less. Is that the idea?
So what I ended up doing, like to show them what they were doing, is I brought a tripod and I elevated the tripod to where like I could just barely see the target at the top of the window. So then when you shoot, your bullet would go over the car and impact the target, where everybody else was like skipping off the roof of the car and shit like that. And I was like,
that kind of comes into the problem solving aspect of it, which unless you do it, then and know what the solution is, or you're just extremely clever and you have some sort of previous experience and know what's going on, then you're likely going to fail the first time. But then you take that knowledge and you move on with life and you just add it to your repertoire, more or less.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So the next question is, what are some matches that you host or are affiliated with?
None. I mean, we just, no matches or anything like that specifically. Just our YouTube shoot. And that's more of a social media event.
Okay. So, well then, since we're already talking about matches anyway, let's talk about the train wreck that was our performances at the quantified performance match.
Hey man, you walked away with an optic. I walked away with a magazine.
I
actually gave that magazine to my brother.
I got a lot of good friends that walked away with stickers, and I consider them to be top choice shooters. All right, so I'm gonna go over for the viewers. I'm going to go over what every stage was, and me and you are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about our feelings about how we feel about each stage.
Well, it is definitely fresh in my mind. It will be for a while.
So, all right, stage one. I was on squad one, so this was my first stage. What you had was 3 shots per target to engage it one time. Like you had to hit it once, but you had 3 chances to hit it. The first target was like 1,000 yards. The second target was 800. And then the third target was 500. And you had to go in that order, 1,000, 800, 500. So for me, first thing in the morning in like post-hurricane winds, my cold bore shot for this match is 1,000 yards. So I'm over here like fucking with my Kestrel and my cell phone because my Kestrel had an update. So I'm over here getting all pissed off about my Kestrel having an update on match day. And I'm like, I did this to myself. I should have turned it on yesterday and whatever. So I'm over here like messing with my Kestrel, just messing with it or whatever. And then I hear, Hayes, Cameron Hayes. And I was like, I'm that guy. So I reach down into my box, I grab a magazine, and I grab a handful of cheetah ammo, and I start fucking cramming rounds in the mag walking up to the stage. I stick 9 rounds in the gun, and I put the mag in it, and he was like, all right, do you understand the course of fire? And I was like, sure. And he's like, all right, ready to go. And then I lay down in the prone, and I go, bam, bam, bam. Because normally, for me, 1,000 yards with the cheetah is like a chip shot. I do it all the time. And that was a big target. So I was like, bam, bam, bam. No, nothing. And then I realized, oh, yeah, it's windy out there. Windy as fuck. So then 800 yards. I actually compensated for wind, got a first round impact at the 8, then go to the 5, get a first round impact at 5. And I was like, I attribute that to me being flustered about my Kestrel and having to load up a mag on the way to the stage and just basically not being ready. And yeah, so that was my fault for not being prepared on that stage, that it ended up being that way. So basically I dropped the 1,000, got the 8, and got the 5. How'd you do on that one?
I didn't. So that was our third stage. And I know we'll go over the first 2 stages that I started on. We started on stage 7, moved to 8, and then moved back over to the KD to 1. But the first 2 stages I shot were within 400 yards. And I had trouble on the second stage, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But when we came over to the KD and went to 1,000, I wasn't really thinking too much about my zero. I'm like, okay, something weird's going on with my rifle because there was a target that I couldn't quite connect with at like 300. It's like 307 yards. I'm like, why can I not hit this target? And I was checking my dope, making sure everything was good. I mean, everything looked right because I'm like right at 10 mils or 10.1 to 1,000. And I'm looking back, and okay, 611 yards is what we shoot at the farm. I'm like, okay, I'm right at it's like 3.7, no 3.9. I'm like, okay, this looks right. So I don't know. Dial up, and I know I need to hold 7 mils based on what I've dialed for the 500-yard target. So I hold 7 mils, and it's windy, so I'm holding like 1.2, like 1.25, 1.5 over to the right. Nothing. Fire again. Make sure my level is correct. I'm not canted over or anything. Fire again. Nothing. Fire the third time. Nothing. Move to 8. 1, 2, 3. Nothing. Move to 5. 1, 2, 3. I fire my third shot, and I can actually see my splash. So my splash was low and to the left. And I'm like, I am holding like 3/4 of a mil to the right, and I know it's not that windy out there. I'm like, my zero has got to be off. So I see my shot, and then I get done with the stage. I move out of the way. I get behind my rifle again, and I glass that target, and I'm trying to make a calculation so I can, maybe try to confirm my load over in applied ballistics on my phone. So I go, and I'm not thinking straight at this point. I'm really frustrated. So I go and I try to do like a ballistic calibration in there. And after I do the calibration, it shows my muzzle velocity went up to like 3,040 feet per second, which that's like 100 feet per second over what it should be. And it shows me 8.9 mils at 1,000 yards. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. Of course it's not going to work, you idiot, because you're not in the same conditions that you zeroed in. So, and I had another variable stacked on me too, because I did not notate my zero atmosphere when I confirmed my load and stuff like 3 weeks ago. And then just to give a little bit of prerequisite here for this conversation, I had my gun zeroed. Okay, I cleaned it after the last match, and oiled the barrel and everything, put it up. I got the carbon ring and stuff out of there. I made sure everything was nice and crystal clear, and put the gun up. It didn't even get touched until about three weeks ago or so, when I actually started loading my ammunition for this match. I took it out, shot it, got it zeroed. I was just slightly to the left of where I wanted to be. Brought it over, shooting 0.6 MOA groups. Okay, go out to 611 yards, get my data, dope it out, shoot. Okay, I'm right where I need to be. I'm gonna be done with it. Maybe like a 10th off. So I did a ballistic calibration. Well, I decided after that I was going to run an arc rail on the bottom. So I put an arc rail on the bottom of it that I had laying around, because I wanted to run a Coltac tricorn bag. And I'm thinking, this shouldn't really make any difference to my zero, because it's a free floated barrel. Well, it did. So come to find out, like the next day after we got done with everything, I went and I double checked my zero, and I was off 4/10 left and 4/10 high.
That's substantial.
4/10.
That's substantial. Just for the viewers, just for some I don't know the word that I'm looking for because I'm drinking. 3/10 is about an inch, and he was 4/10 left and 4/10 high. At 100 yards. That's at 100
inch off. Yep. So you compound that at 800 yards, you're talking being off the target and high. Even when you're holding for wind, you still might be off the target and high, depending on how your rifle groups. If you're shooting 1 MOA, that group could be 8 inches. So you might get lucky and have a shot pull to the right and hit the target, but then most of your shots might be veering off to the left. So that's the problem that I was working with, unbeknownst to me at the time, and getting more and more frustrated as the day went on, trying to figure out what was going on. So I decided I was just going to have to roll with my data that I had and try to spot my shots. And that was another problem.
Send one in the dirt. I said, send one in the dirt.
Okay, so that's the other problem that I had. My rifle is very lightweight. Okay, it only weighs like 12.5 pounds, fully decked out. Okay, it's got this heavily fluted barrel, a really lightweight BCM rail, just forged upper and lower, A2 stock, no extra weight in it, and then I'm running a Geisley mount with a Leupold LRP that weighs 20 ounces. So the whole rig is literally like 12 to 13 pounds. It's not very heavy at all. So some of the positions that we were in, the prone was okay, of course, but some of the positions that we were in, it was hard to spot the shots because the berms, number one, were wet as all get out because we had just had 10 inches of rain. But also a lot of the berms were full of vegetation.
Yep.
So
that's what I was going to say about that 1,000 was there was no way to spot your splash at 1,000. It was just veg behind it. So there was no spotting it.
Yeah, well, that target is actually ahead of like a large pit. It's like 100 yards deep that goes back to the back berm. So you think that you're getting a proper range when you range or lays it or whatever, but you've got this giant pit behind there and you can't see anything. There's nothing to kick up because it's just like concrete. I mean, but it was rough. It was really rough. And I just, like I said, I got more and more frustrated as the day went on just because I couldn't spot my shots really well. And it just compounded upon itself. So continue.
All right. So the next one is the 8 rounds. So like you could only have 8 rounds in your magazine. You had to shoot off of the tombstone, and then you had to shoot off of the rope with like a beanbag chair, and then you had to shoot off the other side of the tombstone. The targets were 613, 610, and 715. I got 3 targets on that one, bro, because that was that stupid windy range. Like that was the KD range. It was right next to the 1,000-yard range. And that was right like in the middle of the range where you're hitting, 25, 27 mile an hour winds. And I was like, fuck my life. So I got the first 3, and then I transitioned over to the beanbag chair. I sit in the beanbag chair, and I was like, ready to do this, and timer. Yeah.
I didn't make it off the tombstone.
Most people didn't. Most people did not.
It just 0 issues. I mean, that's the problem. Like the last match that we shot, you were not in attendance because you said you were away with the military, the army. So
the army.
Army. Eric was Army. Eric was 11 Bravo. 11 Bravo.
Yeah. I'm about to have to switch MOS. So currently, I'm a 19 Delta. But because of my position, I'm the sniper section leader. I have to transition MOSs to 11 Bravo to hold that position.
Yeah. Eric was supposed to be dropping orders on people, but you know how that works. He was doing all kinds of other stuff. So I didn't make it off the tombstone, and it was frustrating. But I had a good position on the tombstone. Like I had a solid image of my target, and I know that I shoot better than that, and I'm like, why am I missing this target? This target is massive. But the last match, I placed 5th overall. I mean, and I didn't really feel like I did great in that match. I mean, I hit a lot of targets, but I didn't really understand like how the gaming part of competition shooting really works and everything. I'm still kind of learning that, but you don't get counted a miss unless you actually don't hit a target. It doesn't matter how much ammunition you fling at them. You can go out there and machine gun it, and if you hit it and you're within par time, hey, you get a score. You don't get 30 or 40 misses. So I kind of figured that out that match and everything. And I've been working with the 6AR for about a year at that point because I had shot it one time before with I'd shot it one time before with 105 grain pills, or no, twice. I shot it twice before. I shot 105s the first time, and that was my first centerfire match ever. And then I shot 90 grain game changers at ridiculous speeds with CFE 223. I broke my bolt. I didn't know it. And I found out like later in the match. I'm like, oh, I broke my bolt. Oops. And then I switched. Yeah, and then I switched to the burgers with AR comp after one of my buddies, Lane, gave me a bag of ammo with that load that they use for National High Power. So they're shooting ARs in it, just like Robert Whitley has for years. He shoots National High Power with the 6AR, and it's a phenomenal round. And I shot this load. I'm like, this load shoots great. So I dissected it and I just started using it pretty much because it just did so freaking well. And I knew that I did good last match. I knew I had a good solid 0 and data confirmed. This match, same thing. I mean, like I said, just the variables stacking on each other, and then me being.
It's funny that me and you were running like the same load, basically. Like you were running you were running 90 grain burgers. I was running 90 grain burgers. I was running AR comp. You were running AR comp.
Yep, it's great, dude. I mean, great minds think alike. It's just a wonderful, wonderful powder, and I never really used it before.
It is my favorite powder.
Yeah, it's becoming mine for gas gun applications and such. It's just, god dang, it's so stable and it meters really well, even for being an extruded powder. But the burgers, I mean, they're burgers. I mean, they're just great pills, But anyways,
the next one, actually, there is a gentleman currently in our chat who's being a cocksucker with Ashton.
Who?
Jordan. Yeah, and you, Ashton. Fuck both of y'all.
I mean, he said he shot right behind you, so I thought he was a pretty good guy.
Fuck both of y'all. You talking about swapping me out for Jordy for Snipers Unknown. You can go to hell and die. But anyway, no, my buddy Jordan Spradley is the guy who made Sprad bags and stuff like that, which I used exclusively at the match. Had asked me about 95 grain Sierras. Well, like, you know as well as I do, every day a new bullet comes out, and if you were like a legit bullet library and you knew every fucking bullet in the world, you would have miles of useless knowledge up in here. So he was like, "What about the 95 grain Sierras?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, these right here, these shot like ass. The 95 grain Sierra TMKs, I could not get these motherfuckers to shoot. Like 1 1/4 was like it. Like that was like the tops." And
I got a thought, but just go ahead and finish and just remind me to talk about 103s.
So Jordy was like, "Well, did you run the 95s?" And I was like, "Yeah, they shot like shit." And he said, "No, the 95 SMKs." And I was like, "Yeah, no tip. Jordy's not about the tip." So I was like, "Let me plug in some numbers because the TMK has a G1 BC of 0.5 and the SMK has a G1 BC of 0.48. So I was like, well, let me see what the difference is here. Out of the 18-inch 6mm Cheetah, I can push the 95 grain pill over 2,700 feet per second, like well over, before I hit pressure. So I can push this projectile and have it shoot sub MOA 2725 out of my 18-inch. What that equates to in like as far as a long range shooting application is at 1,000 yards, I'm right at 10 mils. So if I'm at 10 mils at 1,000 yards using that Projo, that's my new Projo. Whenever I tried to run 105s, like I just couldn't get them to go fast enough. You know, like I couldn't get them to go fast enough to take advantage of the BC. Like wind deflection was really good, but as far as my bullet drop, I was just like, God damn, these things are falling out of the sky. But you were about to say something about 103s.
Yeah, so you mentioned you weren't having very good luck with the tip 95. So I haven't shot any of the tip Sierra projectiles, but I was trying some of the ELD match projectiles from Hornady, the 103s. I think they're 103s. Yeah.
108 is the ELD, the ELDM, and 103 is the ELDX.
Yeah. So I was trying the 103 ELDX because initially on the idea behind the 6AR in this configuration was like a combination hunting and competition rig using the exact same load. Like I wanted to have a hunting projectile and use it for taking deer like down in South Georgia where I could shoot 400 or 500 yards across a peanut field. Okay. And then I could go and shoot a competition with it with the same rifle and not have to worry about different lows and different zeros and reconfirming and blah, 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 blah. So I tried these 103s and I did my normal optimal charge weight test and they did not shoot. Like I went through the test and I took the best 3, loads and I loaded up, 15 rounds each and everything went out and I shot a few groups with each one and they were still shooting like 2 to 3 MOA. With the 103s, but the 105 grain, the 105 grain burgers, the hybrids, or they were their hunting projectile. What is it called?
These are the 105 hybrids.
Yeah, so they've got a 95 grain hunting projectile that they use, and I think they've got a 105 grain as well. So the 105 shot great. I mean, they were MOA or better, and right around like 2,700 feet per second. But that's when I was using CFE powder. I didn't switch to the AR comp until I started running these Burger 90s, and that's kind of what I settled on. But twist rates are big too. I mean, you notice how Hornady went with like a 1 7.5 for these the new 6 arc, right? So I was seeing some very strange anomalies at range with my 105s. I was down at Barber Creek shooting this rig, got it zeroed, got my data, went out to long range, data's off. I'm like, okay, well, do a ballistic calibration. So I did a ballistic calibration, and then it dropped my velocity like 200 feet per second. He said, well, try coming back in like 300 yards. Well, shoot 300 yards, and then I'm too high. Okay, like what's going on? So
you had some weird aerodynamic jump shit going on.
The bullet is going like this in the air. It's literally like it's stabilized, but it is doing this number. And it would spread out, the cone, would open up and it would hit high or it hit low at different ranges. That's the only thing that those guys could figure what was going on with that because I had a lower stability factor with that particular projectile. And they told me, they said, look, if you're not above 2, you don't need to use it. So this 90 grain burger in my 1 and 8 is like I'd have to check my app. I think it's like 2.2 or 2.3 stability factor, Miller stability. And it's been real solid. It's been right on the money. As long as everything is good to go, it tracks beautifully. And God, it's such a good projectile. Can I have those?
90 grain burgers, you say?
Can I have those?
Whenever you came into my class, because while we were at Arena, I taught a class on reloading modern bottleneck rifle cartridges. And he walked in and like opened up my box of 90 grain burgers, and there was like 100 in there, and he was like, "Can I have these?" And I was gonna say yes, but you walked out, and I was like, "All right, I guess you don't want them that bad." Oh my god! All right, so we were just talking about stage 2. All right, so stage 3 was the Polaris. We sorry, I got way off track.
How many stages were there?
Huh?
How many stages was there?
8.
8. Okay.
Yeah, stage.
I got to listen to all this crap.
Yeah, exactly. So stage 3 was the Polaris, and the Polaris was we had a target at 416, 537, and 814, and you had to rest your rifle off of the rail, like where the windshield was, off of the back seat, and then off of the bed of it. I go up to that stage. That was actually a pretty plain Jane stage for me. The way that the environment was for that stage, I knew that we weren't actually going to be feeling the effects of the wind until after 400 yards because there was that tree line out there that broke at 400 yards. So we had kind of a tunneling effect, though. So I knew that the wind was going to be extreme right there at 400. So I accounted for that mentally because you can't really account for that in a ballistic solver. So I did really well on that stage. I popped the first 3, popped the second 3. And then I transitioned to the bed, and then once I got to the bed of it, then I didn't get any because my timer went off. So,
yeah, so I didn't get to transition to the cab, but I did get I think 1 or 2 hits on that stage, hey buddy. But what I was doing was like, here's the target, so I would just take here's the target. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold for wind. All right, I'm gonna shoot high and low, and I got a hit. I'm like, okay, so I aim low. So I went to the further target, and I just did the same thing, like held for wind, I held high, held low, and I just got lucky. And I ran out of time because I was using up so much ammo trying to get in a position and everything like that, and just sending rounds down range. I thought I was going to run out of ammo. But like I said, I mean, every stage is going to sound pretty much like this. Out past 400 yards, you could just like cut and paste what I say. I mean,
well, then that's good for the next one, Chaos, the 1-arm stage. So. A dude who's a regular at the quantified performance matches, Russell, he has 1 arm, so he has to shoot these matches with 1 arm. And super awesome dude, super nice guy. I hung out with him a good bit on Sunday during the Sunday Fun Day Gun Day thing. And but yeah, so you shoot that stage, and basically you start bolt to the rear. Magazine inserted, all of your targets. There was 5 targets at 250, and you had to go 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1. And that was the sequence that you had to do, but they were spaced way the hell out from each other. So it was a very wide berth you had to maintain. And for that one, I hit my rifle on the barrel so that I could send the bolt home. I grabbed my belt so that I wouldn't, because if you grabbed anything with your left hand, then you were automatically DQ'd from that stage, and you like lost all your points and shit. So I started the stage with the rifle in my hand, like holding it by the forearm, and I hit it on the barrel and let it, put around in the chamber, rested it on the barrel, and I got all of them but one. I get to the very last one, and I shot. And whenever I shot, I missed, and I was about to do a follow-up shot, but my gun was empty. So I was like, and I knew I wouldn't have enough time to reload. So I was just like, I guess I'm just dropping one on this stage. And then that was the end of it.
Yeah, so that stage, I dialed up like whatever it was. It was like 0.3 or something. I just, okay, whatever. It's like 250 yards. I don't remember what it was. I have to look at my data, but yeah. So dialed up and got on there and everything. I grabbed my belt too, and I've only got all right. So my optics is 6.5 power on the low end, so it's a little bit high for a stage like that. So I'd prefer to run like 3 power. But I run a 6.5 to 20 LRP on that rig. So I dial all the way down to 6.5, and I'm using the CCH reticle, so it's got those big black like kind of points that come down, so you can really kind of focus in on what your target is that you're trying to center up on. But I'd have to peek over the top of the rifle scope to make sure that I was right on which target I needed to be on, because some of the guys would actually skip a target, or they'd shoot the same target twice, and that would kind of screw them up. But I did that stage in, I think, it was like 70 seconds. I mean, that was a good one. I missed a couple of shots along the way, but I never had to reload. I had 25 rounds in the mag. But I did have a spare mag on me. But some of the guys, they were running the stage and they weren't putting their magazine or moving it from the left side to the right side, where if they had to use their strong hand to go down there and grab it while holding the rifle, then they'd be kind of screwed, like trying to finagle over here to get a magazine. And some of the guys running like the SR-25s and some of the short action type rifles and 308 and such, they only had 20 round mags, and they were like bang, 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 bang. And then just watching them try to finagle and reload this thing without touching it was pretty humorous. And we had one guy in our squad, which was kind of funny. He was a Army guy, and he was running a LaRue OBR with a brake on the front of it, and he had this big pack. So he like strapped this pack to his rifle and dropped it on the barrel, and he proceeded to shoot the stage. And I'm back there looking like, muzzle looks like it's pretty close to the end of that bag. And by the time he got done, he had a new hole in his bag, a new storage compartment, so to speak. It ripped it open, like it just shredded it. It was,
you can put your weed in there.
Yeah, it was pretty humorous. But yeah, that was the stage that actually did reasonably well on him. It wasn't like lightning fast like Chris Woomer. I mean, he can do a stage like that in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys running the short ARs, in like 5.56 or something, just they excel on those quick stages.
Yeah.
Not me.
Well,
like 6.5 hour, way too much.
For that one, I was since I was shooting general purpose division, I was limited to 20 round magazine capacity, and a 1-to-8 optic. So, but I found that with the Shepherd 1-to-8s, I have both of them. I've got the first focal plane and I have the second focal plane. The first focal plane, which is actually sitting right here next to me, the first focal plane, the reticle is super thick, and it's difficult to use for the type of application that I use this stuff for, because of how thick the reticle is. The second focal plane was thin, and I could get a better zero. It doesn't cover up a lot of the target and stuff like that. So I ran the second focal plane, but I crunk it down to 4 power, and I literally just held top of the target for all of them, because I know that at 250, like I have less than 1 mil of bullet drop. So if I held at the top of the target, I would still impact the target, roughly the center. So I just crunk it down to 4 power and held at the top of the target for all of them. And that worked out pretty well for me, with the exception of running out of ammo. I ran out, and that was.
And yeah, you didn't have a spare mag on you?
No, it was. No, I just knew that I wasn't gonna have time to reload one-handed.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna do it.
0.5 mils at 250 yards, like half a mil. So
Yeah.
I mean, stuff like that, I'll just crank it up and just aim dead on. The reticle in that CCH, it has points that come in, from the horizontal and vertical stadia, and then a nice fine dot in the middle. It's like a quarter or half MOA dot. The Trigicon 1-to-8 that I have is probably like your Shepherd there. It's got a really like crazy thick, like 4 MOA cross in the middle of it. And it obscures everything that you're trying to do. If you're trying to shoot tiny groups with that thing to get a gun dialed in, like I have to dial it up so I can use the first actual stadia in there where the lines are a lot thinner to be able to get a good fine aiming point, and then I have to drop it back down and then confirm it at range and make sure everything's kind of good to go. It's not real practical for those kind of applications. So
yeah, I've tried. One of the dudes that's in our chat right now, I had explained to him with the optic that he's running. He was running the 1-to-10 Vortex, and it's got a 1 MOA center aiming point. And I was like, that's a big ass dot, and we're shooting at 1 MOA circles, 1-inch circles at 100 yards.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're literally covering that entire thing, so you don't really have a fine aiming point. So I told him, I was like, start using the stick, the 1 mil stick on your in your reticle, and start using that because it's a finer aiming point. But anyway, all right, so that was chaos. The next one was rooftop. So on rooftop, the first 2 targets were 465, 635, and then you had to shoot a 277 3 times, or shoot at it 3 times. And then you transition over to the right side of the rooftop, 595, 570, and then you go through the roof and 3 more shots at 277. The way I did this one, just because, like I'm a hold guy, I'm not a dial guy, is I went ahead and looked at those targets and I was like, that's like 3 mils at the bottom of the target for the first one at 465. So hold 3 mils bottom of the target and you'll impact the target. And at 635, that was 5 mils, hold at the top of the target. So I remembered 3 bottom, 5 top. And then for the next targets, the 595 and the 570, it was 4 mils, like right in 4 mils for those 2 targets. So for the first target was a little bit further. I knew to hold 4 mils at the top of the target, and for the second target, hold 4 mils at the bottom of the target. So I go into that stage with this in my mind. So I hit the stage, 3 low, 5 low, then go to the 277. I know that's about a mil. Bang, bang, bang. Go to the next one, 4 high, 4 low. Go to the center, bang, bang, bang. And I just got overconfident, and I fucking missed one of the 277s because I was smoking through that stage. And that was one of those targets that you couldn't do a makeup shot. You only get 3 shots. You only have the opportunity for 3 hits. So I was like, so I completely screwed myself right there. So I dropped one target.
You had to make a shot on the first target to move to the second one. Well, I never made a shot on the first target. I mean, even given how large those targets were, just didn't work. I was shooting all around that thing. I'm like, where are my impacts? Like, I cannot see my impacts. And I got to tell you something else too, just for those that are watching. One of the other variables that I discovered the next morning was my Arca rail had a small screw that was a little bit long. Okay, so it was not clearing my barrel very much, and that BCM rail has a very, very short barrel nut. Okay, so it's really easy to torque that lightweight rail up and down when you're getting into position. So the only thing I can figure is that number one, I was torquing my rail and I was hitting that bolt, okay, on the Arca rail. Number two, I took that off the next morning and I started torquing on that rail. If I torque it too much, the gas block contacts the rail. So stack that variable on there too, and then you run into all those issues that I was having. Like, I mean, I could have been torquing it one way or the other, and I could be throwing my damn shots off by 2 or 3 mils, maybe. I mean, because the barrels aren't more free floated at that point.
People, sounds like y'all are both full of excuses.
Hey,
I'm full of excuses.
So it's you're talking about like contacting the barrel, the gas block contacting and stuff. Mm-hmm. People talk shit about how fucking ugly the rail is, like how pretty the gun is, because like I'm running a Title II manufacturing Hayes rifle, so I've got this pretty ass upper and lower matching set. It's all painted, everything's all cool, and then I got this monstrosity of a fucking rail that's clearly hacksawed up, and like you can see, or you might be able to see, that there is literally nothing right there. The only gap stop for that is a little piece of 1913 rail I screwed in, and it goes on both sides of my gas block. My gas block clears pretty heavily and stuff like that. And that was because I've definitely run into that issue in matches where I've had something just barely contact the barrel, and it's completely ruined your precision.
Yeah. Well, that's the first time I've had that issue. Like I hadn't really been working the rifle so hard as I did like this match. I was pretty ginger with it last match. I would take a bag with me, drop it into position, and then I'd lay my rifle on there, and like I might just put my hand over top of my optic, and that was it. But this time I was like grabbing the rail and like manhandling this thing to try to get a really solid position where I could spot my shots, because I was running an area 419 break for this match and the last match. Last match I ran a 6.5 break with the 6 mil. This time I got a specific 6 millimeter break, and it does make a difference. But like I said, that rifle's so lightweight, you've really got to manhandle that thing to keep it from really moving. But if I add a little bit of weight to it, maybe get a little bit heavier barrel, heavier rail, and add some weights to the buttstock, some of the high power weights, I could probably get that thing up around like 16, 17 pounds. And then you're talking about a gun that probably isn't going to move when I, come into play like that. But that's another issue too. So I think I was torquing on that roof because I was using the tricorn bag for the entire match, and the tricorn bag like folded over, okay, and it got a nice grip on that roof. But then I was putting my elbow down on the roof and then pulling the front of the rail in like this. So probably contacting the gas block, and shots are going like, hey, where are we going? So I didn't even get a first round impact. Oh yeah, I didn't even get the first impact. Yeah,
thoughts and
prayers. I couldn't move on. I couldn't move off the left side of the roof.
So the next one was positions, which stage 6 got thrown out. That's what Jordy's talking about in the comments.
That stage, no, we don't even want to talk about that stage.
So for that one, like I saw so many people, like you were talking about game and stuff. Like me and Ashton, like, whenever we shoot matches, we don't game shit. Like we just like if they say, hey, this is these are your left and right limits, we're just like okay, and then we just shoot, and then that's it, and we enjoy it. We don't give a fuck about game, and we don't do all that stuff or whatever. But this was one of those stages that I was like, there's an obvious, faster, better, better way to do it. And the better way to do it is to start from the prone position, because you had to shoot prone. You got 3 shots from each position. You had to get a total of 8 hits. And like you could shoot kneeling or prone. So like theoretically, you could go 1 for 1 in the prone position and then only have to get 2 hits from the kneeling, and you're done. Or you can go from a less stable position and try to shoot these targets and waste a whole bunch of time trying to be stable. So,
well, the confusing thing was
the way they read it.
Yes. So like you could take a shot, but you had to shoot from each position. Okay, you had 3 shots, right? So you could go target 1, target 2, target 1, but you couldn't move on to the next target unless you hit the first one. So if you took 3 shots at the first target, there's your 3 shots for that position. So you got to move to the next position, but you can't start on target 1 anymore. You got to start on target 2, even though you missed target 1. Like that was kind of how like we understood. It was like, wait a minute, don't we have to start back over on 1, or do we try to hit 2 and then move back to 1? Like that's why it was so screwed up. People were moving back and forth. There were guys losing count because you had to get 8 hits.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, what hit am I on? And they said, like Jack was at our stage when we did that, or he was at the stage when our squad did that stage. And he said, you can ask me. He said, how many hits am I on? Which position am I on? He said, I'll tell you. But, oh, my God, dude, that stage sucked. It was too much like – it was too much stuff going on up here.
I was mildly pissed off that they threw it out, but at the same time, like, I don't really care because I was there to have a good time anyway.
Yeah.
So like whenever they threw it out, I was like, damn, that was one of my good stages because I cleaned that stage. And I did like I went prone. I went 1 for 1 on the targets on the prone. So it was like 1, 2, 3, go to the other prone position, 1, 2, 3, get in the kneeling position. I was like, and I missed 1 in the kneeling position, and then like sent the other 2. I sent 1, and then I missed another one, and then I had to transition to the last position, sent 1 more shot, and I was done with it. So I was done. Like I got that one like pretty fast, pretty good. And they were like, that one doesn't count. And I was like, damn it. But I didn't really care.
Well, the buddy that I was shooting with, he did pretty good on that stage too. And it was only his second time ever doing that match. I mean, he placed like way down in the line, but he actually did pretty well on that stage. He had like 6 of those targets within par. I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, with a 14.5-inch SR25 and 308.
Nice. Wow, that's substantial recoil.
Yeah, but he had good data too. Like I set his rifle up and everything for him, and he didn't touch it. Unlike me, he had good data.
Yeah. So the next stage was the trailer, where you had to shoot a target was 400 yards away, and you had 8 shots. You had to go 2, 2, 2, and 2. For me, I was smoking that stage. I was first 2, bang, bang, hit, go to the next position, bang, hit. And I shoot the 4th shot out of my gun, and I was so confident that I just hit it that I was already moving the gun. Like I was already thinking about the transition to my next position before the shot broke. And I was like, I just missed that one. So then I get the next one. I was like, don't do that again, Cameron. Bang, bang, hit. And then I get like my ass cheeks up on the side of the trailer, and I have the rifle set up on the little rail, and my feet came up. Both feet both feet came up, and I sent the shot when both feet came up, missed the target. And I was like, so then I like wrapped my feet to like try to grip my body up as much as I could, and then I shot the last shot and got a hit. So I dropped 2 on that one.
So I only dropped 1 on that stage because you only had 2 shots per position. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that was an 8-shot stage. So first 2, bang, hit. Okay, move, bang, hit, bang, hit, bang, hit, bang, hit. And or no, I'm sorry, I dropped 2 on that stage. I hit 6, I dropped 2 because idiot me on the left side of the trailer. Since I'm right-handed, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to shoot this weak side. How much do I practice weak side? So I got up there and I put my rifle in, and I'm not used to shooting with my left hand, so I wasn't right here on the web of my finger. So I pulled the shots both like right, just barely. Like I watched them like go this far past that target, and I'm like, you idiot! Like you could have cleared that stage, and I did it pretty quick too. I'm telling you, that tricorn bag, it's got like 3 points on the bottom of it, and it just like it's like an octopus. Oh my god, dude, it's awesome. It's a great bag. But
the last stage was the house.
Mm-hmm.
So the house was you were sitting in the get off my lawn position where you're just basically in a rocking chair. You had to have your feet up. So you have your feet up, you've got your rifle set off to the side, and your bag needs to be in your lap. So basically the way that I had planned this stage was I was like, okay, some people were starting it cross-footed. And I was like, that's already going to slow you down. Why would you do that? So I started, with my feet just straight out. I hopped down, drop my bag in between the tires, get down the gun, bang, 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 real fast, go to the next one, bang, 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 done. That was the targets were basically between 300
and 350.
Yeah, it was 300 to 350. So it was just one of those lightning stages for me where I'm just like, I'm just going to send something at it and hope for the best. The end.
Yeah. So I dialed up to 3 and just held slightly high for the 247 because there was only one target at that range, and it was a coyote, which is actually more difficult to hit because the dang thing's only like 4 or 5 inches tall, but it's long, so it kind of throws you off a little bit.
Those weren't even coyotes. Those were like Datsun targets.
Oh man, dude, no, they had a coyote out there because remember that was what they used. Yeah, on the Chaos stage before, well, where Chaos was this time, that's where they had the critters. They had the coyotes and the pigs and stuff, and you had to go like 1, 2, 1, 4, and you had all that kind of crazy stuff, just like Chaos. But, anyways, I get to the third target on the second like tire. Okay, the first tire I was like, bang, ding, bang, miss, bang, ding, bang, ding, bang, ding, bang, ding. Okay, move on to the second one, bang, ding, bang, ding. All right, get to the third target, this pig. Okay, just huge pig. It's like this big at 300 yards. Bang, 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 bang. What is going on? And I'm like, this pig is in the cone of safety. Like all my rounds are going all past him. And he's just sitting there going, finally I get a hit on him after like 12 shots. What is going on? And then I get the other 2 just fine. I just hold a little bit right. I'm thinking, what is going on with my rifle? And that's about when I really started realizing, okay, there's some problem. And then after that stage, that's when we moved to stage 1, where you started shooting 1,000 yards. And I'm like, uh-oh. So, but those were literally, those were my only 2 like decent stages. And look, I placed 38th out of like almost 100 people. And those are my 2 good stages. And I don't think I hit a target on any other. I may have hit like 1 or 2 other targets besides those 2 and Chaos. Chaos I did good. So 3 stages. And I placed 38th. What does that tell you about not only the stages, but like either everybody's preparation or like me, or the quality of how they actually shoot? I'm like, man, I know there's got to be people out here that are better shooters than this. Like something's got to be going on.
Everyone who I talked to after the match and stuff just said the wind. They were like, that wind fucked them. Like they're just not used to shooting in the wind. So like they were just doing holds, and like if their target would miss, instead of trying to do something about it. Like me and Ash had talked about it before, where like if you shoot at a target and you have no fucking clue where your round went, but your elevation has been good all day, hold left of target, send a shot. Hold right of target, send a shot. Hold more left of target, send a shot. Hold more right of target, send a shot. And just keep doing that until you fucking hit it. If you know your elevation's been good the whole time and ranging's been good the whole time, do that.
Yeah.
I actually saw Ash. We went to Alabama a couple weeks before to kind of get a little bit. I tried to get a little bit of data. I was more demoing my rifle cartridge, but Ash busted out his 260. Like most people will go, I'm going to shoot at 100 yards. I'm going to shoot at 200. I'm going to shoot at 300. I'm going to shoot at 400. This guy's like, what's the farthest target on the range? 1,000 yards? Yeah, cold bore. Hey, Cam, spot for me. So I got down behind the cheetah. He told me he was aiming for like the top left 4-inch circle on the target, and it had a big background, but it was a 4-inch circle.
Sure.
He shoots at it, and I was like, you were a target right and a target high, and he was like, Roger, runs the bolt, sends the next shot, and he impacted the bottom left of it on his second shot, and I was like, we're gonna win Snipers Unknown this year. my dude go hard with that 260. He shoots a 260 Remington.
Oh, I love 260.
Oh yeah. That 260 hit hard.
260 or 6.5 Creedmoor, man. I don't know, man. You shoot them bigger bullets than that there 6.5, man.
Well,
yeah,
y'all
it's the same thing.
Shooting in the wind and guys getting frustrated and not used to shooting in it. Years ago we started where most people would wait for a calm day to go collect data and have a nice non-breezy day to shoot. We were looking for the weekends where it was 10 to 15, like hoping for wind just to experience. So we were doing all our practicing on those days and focusing on trying to get out there, where other guys would just be, this is too frustrating. Screw it.
Yep.
You got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, it's definitely frustrating. I mean, especially when you're doing data. But one thing I didn't know before I started taking these long-range classes and looking more into long-range shooting is I thought, like, if you're shooting, say you're shooting on a range that's facing north and you've got this crazy heavy wind coming right out of the north, I thought that wind would pull the bullet down. It would mess my elevation, but that's not the case. It doesn't really affect it as much as one might think. It's just funny to, like, when the winds are coming in at more of a bladed angle towards your projectile, it really doesn't do a whole lot. It doesn't even affect your projectile as much as a straight on wind would. And then you've got like aerodynamic jump, and things like that, depending on which way the wind's blowing. So your bullet's going to act like an airplane wing and either go higher or lower, just all these crazy things. And shooting in the wind is one thing that I haven't done a whole lot of. But like Cameron, T-Pain, right? All right. So he won the match. All right. He had one miss.
Golly.
One
miss.
Like him. All right. But to be fair, their Army marksmanship unit.
He had more than one miss.
I'm just saying he had one miss on paper. Okay.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. One miss on paper.
Yeah.
But those guys shoot down there at arena all the time, and they know exactly what all the wind is doing. They know how, they literally know how to game that stage because they have prior knowledge from so many hours and so many rounds down on that range, which, like, lowly peons like myself, like, I don't have that ability to go out there and do that kind of stuff all the time. And, but it's not my job. I'm not an Army marksmanship guy. It's not my job. I wish I could. Oh God, I would love to do that, but I wouldn't want to be in the military.
No, because even with us focusing on practicing and picking days that are windy, I still feel like I suck reading the wind.
You're the best, Ashton. Don't you ever talk bad about
this one? I think I got it figured out. I'm like, well, that was wrong.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit jaded because I haven't been exposed to any other wind calling techniques or anything other than James Eaglewood's down at Barber Creek. But, it just makes so much sense to read the mirage and not try to read off vegetation or things like that. But the thing is, after shooting on like really cloudy days and stuff where you don't really have that good mirage boiling up, because you wouldn't look at the mirage on the ground. You'd actually go where max ord of the projectile is, where the highest peak of that projectile is on its travel to the target. And that's where you would kind of pull your focus back and look at the mirage right there, because that's where the bullet is going to be most affected by the wind, is at max ordnance. But if you got a cloudy day, you cannot see the mirage.
Yeah, you're talking about tiers of wind. So like
Yes.
that was one of the things I did in my competition was I had people shooting off the top of a Connex box that was way elevated, and then like the tree line was down below them where they were shooting way over the tree line. And I was like, y'all don't realize this, but whenever you're getting your wind readings on the ground, you're in tier 0 of wind.
Yep.
Once you get up on top of that Connex, you're in tier 4 whenever your bullet hits its max ordnance.
Yep.
Just so you guys, like, I was trying to help them out, and people just were not hearing it. But yeah, that was one of those things. So I'm going to give you and the viewers who are actually still watching a little pro tip from Cameron Hayes. And I say pro tip because I think, like the whole like professional shooter thing is kind of misunderstood sometimes. So like, you can people advertise themselves as a pro shooter, and it's like, well, let's break that down. You're a shooter. Yeah, you shoot guns. Anyone who shoots gun is technically a shooter. A pro shooter, a professional, someone who does it as their profession, as a job. They get paid to do it. So I get paid to do this. So like whenever I give people advice, and it's free advice, I'm like, maybe you should listen. I'm not saying you have to because I'm getting paid regardless, but maybe you should listen. So to my viewers, this is my advice as far as long-range shooting is concerned. This is what I do. So if I'm shooting something like a designated marksman match or not ELR or a sniper match or something like that, whenever I zero my rifle, I'll go ahead and zero it 2/10 left. And the reason why
Spin drift
is we have spin drift and Coriolis drift, and we live in the northern hemisphere. So for those reasons, at about 400 or 500 yards, my zero is going to be correct as far as windage is concerned. Your elevation, Ashton's seen for basically every competition that I've shot in, I use Strelok. And I don't even use Strelok Pro. I use regular ass Strelok. And I've been, really successful. Like, for example, this match that we just shot, I was second place for my division, and I was 7th place overall out of 104 shooters. And I was in the hardest division, I was shooting general purpose. So, like there's, even with the odds stacked, it's if you know little tips and tricks, then like it vastly helps you whenever the majority of the crowd is people who have only ever confirmed data on a non-windy day kind of thing, like what we were just talking about.
You also had an advantage of your cartridge of choice as well. So used to general purpose was like 5.56. So
yeah,
you're kind of stacking the deck in your favor, shooting a 6mm Wildcat. Okay, so
that is true.
I got to play devil's advocate and put that out there just a little bit. But you did have an advantage. Okay,
but anybody could have done that though, so it wasn't really an advantage. Anyone could have done it.
So
yeah, so I ran an 18-inch barrel, a 1-8. Some people were even running 1-10s. I was running an 18-inch barrel, 1-8, and 20-round mags. And and most of the people, I was really, really surprised. Most of the people who I talked to who had been really doing some train up for the match, like all the hood rats, all the guys, all of my people, the Title II manufacturing people, majority were shooting 6.5 Grendel, just because they've seen that their 5.56 is getting pushed around a whole lot at these windy distances and ranges, and then they started shooting Grendel, and they're like, oh, I don't have to hold as much of that. This makes it way easier. So I was like, you know what? If I'm shooting this match, I'm going to do everything that I can within the limits that still, everybody else can do it. And I'm just going to shoot it. And that was why whenever I first saw you at Arena the first time, I was like,
6 AR.
You're shooting a 6 AR. I was like, I've been working on a rifle cartridge that's similar to 6 AR. And that's why I wanted to pick your brain that day, was because I was like, it was still in its infancy at the time. Like I'd already designed it and everything, but I was just starting to put it into production, actually make it, was right around that time. And then this match, I was like, you know what? There's not a better rifle cartridge for this match. I think that the 6mm Cheetah is probably, or what's going to be 6mm Hayes, is probably it's optimal for that match, because in an 18-inch barrel, I'm still getting 5.56 velocities, but I'm getting 308 BCs. you know, so I'm getting the best of both worlds with this thing. So I was like, you know, like I got a whole lot of first round impacts that, you know, I've been shooting a 5.56 gas gun for years. And I seriously don't think that I would have done better with the 5.56 gas gun that I've been shooting for years, just because I had the advantage of BC with this one. And just, it was just, I think that it showed well, you know, like I was really nervous because this was going to be the first time that I was going to be using my rifle cartridge in a competition. So I was like, it's going to fuck up. It's going to malfunction. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. Like everything bad's going to happen. There's a plane going to crash on me. It's good, you know, like just everything bad. And then I shoot it and I place far better than I thought. Like that's why whenever they called my name, whenever they were calling out all the second place people, they told me to come up there, and I walked up and I was like, what am I here for? And they were like, you got second place for general purpose division. I was like, shut the fuck up. No, I didn't. And they were like, yeah. And the first thing I said was I was shooting a Title II manufacturing rifle in my cartridge. So yeah, that was
if that's not a good ground for it, I don't know what is. I mean, like I said, fifth last match with it in my rig, but mine's more of, you know, I'm in open, you know, mostly because of my barrel length, obviously, because it's 22, and then my optic is over 18 power. And the thing is, I mean, I bought that optic for that rifle specifically. I'm like, and I've kind of gotten out of the camp of like higher magnification. I mean, I've got a 4.5 27 Vortex in the safe that I don't really use that much. It's a great optic, but god dang, it's just so heavy. I mean, the thing is 54 ounces with a mount. I mean, my Leupold is 22 ounces with a mount. So it's a stark difference. But the highest power that I used during the match was like 14. And that was really kind of too high. I mean, I usually kind of stick around like long range stages. I stick around like 12.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but me and Ashton, since, you know, me and him shoot precision rifle matches a good bit and whatever, me and him tell people all the time, because we'll see people crank their shit all the way up. We're like, back down that fucking magnification. Like, for example, so the gun I got sitting behind me is a 12-inch Cheetah with a suppressor. And that one's got a 4-14 because that fits the application. You know, I've shot this gun out past 1,000 yards easily. Because with those 90 grain burgers, I'm pushing like 2,500 feet per second out of this 12-inch barrel.
So I'm 2860. I'm 2860 with mine. It was real similar out of a 22-inch barrel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, losing like 25.
If you're going 2860, I can push them a little over 28 out of my 18-inch barrel. On my 18-inch, and out of my 12, like I said, I'm pushing like 2,500 feet per second. So basically, whenever we had our Sunday Fun Day Gun Day thing or whatever, the first target I tried to engage with that was the 500. I held like one target off for a wind, and I got a first round impact at 500. And I was like, I'm just gonna go put this back in the truck because it's just stupid. I fucking love this gun. This is like, I hate to say it because like I'm shooting the 18 and I've sold a lot of my 18s and stuff like that, but the 12-inch 6mm Hayes, 6mm Cheetah, whatever we're calling it today, is like one of my favorite guns, legit. Like that with a suppressor on it and a 4-14, just fucking, I'm gonna kill a deer with it this year for sure.
So when I bought that optic, I got it through my buddy at Optics Planet, and I called him up. I'm like, hey, y'all have any like open box stuff? And he actually did. So I got this 6.5 to 20 LRP for like $700. And it's just like, God, man, I can't beat that deal. You know, just to have a little bit higher powered grid optic, because it's got the CCH in it. It's Leupold's, you know, their proprietary grid reticle. All right, It's got 0.25 quarter mil holes instead of 0.2, instead of, you know, 1/5 holes. But you know, the more I think about it, the more and more when I go to like a 4.5 to 14 on that rig, because I could use that lower power, and then 14 is really all I really ever need to go out to, you know, long, stupid range. The only time I use higher power is when I'm really bedded down at the bench and I'm really trying to shoot like tiny groups and get a very, very fine point of aim. But like you said, people don't understand when you're shooting matches and stuff and you crank that optic all the way up. Say you got a 27 power, you crank it to 27 and you're trying to shoot off this unstable platform, you know, this is what your target's going to look like in there. Just like silhouette shooters. These guys will use like 20 and 30 power optics, but they also have extremely good positioning too, and bone positioning and stuff. And shooting buffaloes in 500 yards, but the targets are huge too.
Massive.
They're giant full size buffalo targets.
Ash, what magnification is your Vortex?
3 to 18.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Ash would have been in practical precision too. So Ash, me and Ash did a scope tracking test, a real scope tracking test. I fucking
talking about this, yeah.
Yeah, so me and him did a scope tracking test on his scope, and he had a 0% scope tracking error on it. I was like, damn, all right. Yeah, so I was like, all right, out of a Vortex, cool.
So
my Shepherd had a 1%, which is super, super doable. And
that loophole that you tested had, you said, a 6?
Yeah, the reason that I don't have a good relationship with loophole, yeah.
Well, are you sure that wasn't just some sort of fluke? Because that's a huge scope tracking error.
That's what I told him. Like I even said before I posted the video, I sent him a message. I was like, hey, I think you guys might have sent me a lemon. There's a problem with this scope, blah, 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 blah. And they said, they didn't respond to that. And then I posted the video. And I was like, look, it's got a 6% scope tracking error, but it's consistent. So you can account for that in your firing solution and still get consistent hits. But 6% is kind of a big deal. And I ended up getting contacted by somebody from Loophole, and they said, send it back. So I sent it back to them because they sent it to me to evaluate. Yeah, and they said, we're not going to send you another optic. And I was like, I gave you an opportunity to fix it, which is okay. So what I took off of the prize table was a Blackhound 6-24 scope. One of the guys knew who I was there and stuff like that, and he said, "Hey, this guy evaluates products for the gun industry. Like that's one of the things that he does. Like he's probably going to do a YouTube video with your scope." And so the owner of the company called me and said, "Hey, I heard you might be doing a review for my scope and blah blah blah. That you took it off of the prize table and whatever." And I was like, yeah, can I swap this out for a mil? Because he sent it to me in MOA. And he was like, yeah, so I'm going to swap it out for mil. And I'm going to evaluate it on my channel. And he was like, he had heard about my relationship with Loophole. He knew about it somehow. I don't know how he heard about it, but he was like, look, if you have a problem with our scope, I only ask that you give us the opportunity to make it right first. And I was like, look, man, I gave them a chance to make it right, and they did not take it. I was like, I would not just slam a company. We do enough backbiting in the industry as it is. Like, I don't need to make it worse, so yeah, that was just how that turned out. I told him I'm going to evaluate a scope. If I have a problem with it, I'll tell him first, give him an opportunity to fix it, but it will be in the video. It's not like I would eliminate it from the video or anything because I do honest reviews. I don't get paid for my YouTube shit. I do that because I enjoy doing it,
Yeah, I see Jordan Spradley here. He says he downloaded my data sheet way back on the 6AR, which I actually I need to update that thing. I haven't updated it in quite a while, except for my round count. But I'm pretty much settled into my round now, so I'm not really doing much other testing with it. But so we had a similar relationship with Federal like that, and we got a good relationship with CMMG as well. We got some T&E guns from them in the Valkyrie back then. And shot it. It was like, this is kind of weird. And we shot it before it was even released at SHOT. It was released beforehand. It was announced and everything, but the official release on everything was going to be like right around SHOT and all. So we were filming a video in preparation for SHOT Show, and it just did not perform very well. And we collected chronograph data, and like some of the stuff was way off, like even like too hot. So like we had a 90 grain load that was running like 2,800 feet per second.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is pretty crazy. The 60 shot good, the 75 shot good, the 90s, not so much. But we decided to like shelf that video for the time being, and we got another rifle in, tried it, same thing. We got more ammo in, same thing. And then I got my 6.5 barrel, built out a gun in it, and started shooting the same factory ammunition that we had previously, and it was at least 100% more accurate on most accounts. Like the 90s went from being like 2 and 3 MOA to like 1 MOA, maybe 3/4 MOA, and real consistent. It still shot the 60s really well. It shot the 75s phenomenally. No crazy anomalies there, accuracy-wise or velocity-wise. But, I tried a 6 twist barrel as well, just out of curiosity. And that did pretty good with 90s. It did good with my 95 grain hand loads. But it did crap, with the 60s because it's just flinging those bullets at, way too high of an RPM. And then, I was talking to some of the guys at Federal and all. I'm like, look, I said, I just want to see like data that you guys have collected on this. Like, what exact data have you guys, collected on the back end? I said, I can sign an NDA. I don't care. I just want to compare my data that I see to what you guys get. I know it's not directly comparable because of different atmospherics. Y'all are probably shooting in a tunnel. You might be using a different chronograph. But, I mean, come on. They can't be 100 feet per second off. Well, they would never share anything with me. Okay, so I finally reached out to JP, got a JP rifle in on loan, $4,000 AR. Okay, like top of the line. And I requested one that had already been shot and broken in and been tested at the factory. They sent me a brand new gun. So I went up to one of our big local shops up in Atlanta, and I bought $200 worth of Valkyrie ammo with my own money. And went out there, shot these brand new lots because I was told that the new lots that were out, I got a list of the lots. I went out, I made sure that the ammunition was within that spec. I'm like, okay, this is the brand new ammo that's on the shelf that anybody can go out and buy who's got a Valkyrie. I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be the consumer. So came back, shot it. Exact same results that I saw with the original like CMMG, like shooting 2 to 3 MOA groups with 90 grain Federal. And, I'm like, dude, and I posted, I just posted on Instagram, but I mean, all that data is in my old Valkyrie data sheet, and they were not happy. They were like, I wish you would have given us the opportunity. I'm like, look, guys, y'all touted this rifle. Federal said that, they shot y'all's barrels in development of this cartridge. You put it out for public consumption. I am a consumer. I am consuming it, and I am sharing my data with the public. I said, I am no different than anybody else who would have bought this rifle and went out, broke it in, shot it for groups, and been disappointed. And, I said, look, I mean, I'll keep the gun a little bit longer if I'm able to, and I will test it a little bit more. But, I said, you guys have to come off the boat a little bit and share some data with me. Like, what have you guys been seeing with this? Like, oh, we've got pro shooters out there that are doing this, and that. I'm like, well, prove it. I had Federal ambassadors reaching out to me saying, oh, well, the Valkyrie's good. You just don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, well, prove it. Like, what have you done? I mean, where's your data? Oh, well, I haven't. I've shot it past 800 yards. I'm like, well, okay, well, that tells me dick. It tells me nothing. So unless you have quantifiable
out to a mile,
unless you have quantifiable data on this cartridge that you can prove, then I have done way more work than you. It's like, oh, I've got 8,000 rounds of Valkyrie down the tube, but I know more than you. Because, quote unquote, hashtag Federal ambassador, like that doesn't tell me anything. We're not sponsored by anybody. We don't have a Federal ammo sponsorship or anything like that. We aren't limited to anybody. That's why we stay independent, because we don't have sponsorships like that. I mean, we do what we want. Like, we show what we want, when we want, and how we want. And we try to be as honest as we can. I mean, I've had suppressor manufacturers send me cans, and I go out and test them. I'm like, hey, this is what this can does. It does good on this. It doesn't do good on this. Oh, we don't like the video. You can't post that. Like, okay.
I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Bye.
Well, so Ashton actually has to jump off. So, Ash, before you jump off, you want to say anything to the viewers about, your sponsors or anything like that, or any shout outs you want to throw or anything like that?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Title II Manufacturing. And I guess technically I can say I got another sponsor with Cameron hooking me up with a cheetah.
A cheetah. That's how you say cheetah.
I actually, Ashton is getting the original 17-inch prototype, which was like the very first barrel that I got. So I'm giving it to him. And been shooting
Look, man, don't do anything with that rifle. You better put it in a case and put it away, because one day that'll be worth a gob of money. It's gonna be like Knight's SR25s. Just put it away for a while. It'll at least double in value. I mean,
at least probably quadruple tomorrow.
Yeah, probably.
But anyway, cool. So all right. So you got anything else you want to say, Ash, before you jump off, or is that it?
Nope.
You love? you love me and that you're never gonna come pick up your fucking upper?
No, you're gonna bring it to me, and we're gonna go stab some fish.
Can we shoot some fish with it? Because that'd be dope.
Yeah. There's some coves in the upper lake. We can take some suppressed shit up there.
You think your neighbors would be cool with that? Like your parents' neighbors just hear fucking boom.
That's why I said up the lake where there's no houses.
Hey, we could have popped some frogs last time.
Oh yeah.
Them frogs were huge. All right, man. Well, enjoy your thing you got to handle.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, dude. Nice meeting you.
Okay, big man.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to hop off here shortly too. It's past my kids' bedtime, and I think they might be in bed now. And I am ready to sit in silence and stare at the wall.
Solitude for solid dudes.
Yes.
All right, so I'll shotgun these questions, and you can answer them as short as you want or as long as you want. All right,
I'll take your time.
Do you have any tips or tricks that you would like to share to somebody who's getting into long range, like something that gave you an aha moment?
I think the biggest thing with me was actually just having the proper setup to measure cant. Okay, because cant is a huge problem. And in addition to that, like making sure that everything. All right, number one, make sure that every single thing on your rifle is torqued to spec. Okay, and keep torqued to spec. And make sure you keep very, very detailed notes of every torque setting on your rifle. Okay, that comes down to your action screws, your ring base, okay, your base itself, okay, and Loctite is your friend. Just don't use the green stuff because it'll turn a 2-piece mount into a 1-piece mount real quick.
Forever.
But just keep very detailed torque settings. And make sure that everything is torqued down to spec. All right, it's like 65 inch-pounds for your action screws if you're running a bolt gun. Usually anywhere between 45 and like 70 inch-pounds for your base itself. 25 or so inch-pounds for your scope base that goes on top of your action. 15 to 20 inch-pounds for your rings. Okay, make sure your rifle scope is level. Try to eliminate every single variable that you possibly can. Okay, before you go out to the range, because if something goes wrong at the range, you'll be scratching your head going, okay, where'd I go wrong? Well, if you have detailed notes and you know that everything is torqued down like it's supposed to be, you can work on other variables that are actually meaningful rather than backtracking and trying to start over from scratch and wasting time, wasting ammo, and becoming more and more frustrated.
But then whenever you shoot like 4 or 5 MOA shot groups, then it's your fault. And then you have to be like, shit, my load development process sucks.
It may not be your fault because I had a Remington 700 that was only contacting on one bolt lug, and it didn't even show its rear its ugly head until about 150 rounds down the pipe. But then I started getting like groups all over the place, are really inconsistent, and they started going, So kind of crazy stuff. But just before you go out and really try to dial your rifle in the first time, even if you're only shooting 100 yards, just make sure that everything is. All your T's are crossed, all your I's are dotted. Make sure your rifle is set up properly. And we've got some great videos on like scope mounting, leveling, and things like that. I lap rings and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I'm real anal retentive about like setups like that. And that's why this last match frustrated me so much because I'm like that. I'm really OCD with things, and I'm really hard on myself when it comes to failure like that, especially dismal failure where I know that something is wrong and I just can't figure it out. And, when you figure it out, you're like, God, you're such an idiot. But all I's crossed and T's dotted. I see that. But
I was saying that for Jordy.
Now, I did not say that. I'm not.
No, you said it right. Yeah. But that was the way that I heard it, and I was like, "Oh, this is funny. I'm going to put this in the comments."
But also, like cant, make sure you've got it like an anti-cant device on there where you can actually level your optic. Because the further out you get to range, that compounds, pretty greatly. It could throw you off a lot if your rifle isn't level. And this is really important for long-range hunters. I mean, you're trying to humanely take an animal at like 800 or 900 yards with something like a 6.5 Creedmoor. You've really got to have all of your crap in order to be able to do that and take that shot. But I think that's the biggest thing is just making sure your setup is right before you really start diving into, the ins and outs of actual long range shooting. and don't get discouraged. If you're missing a target and stuff like that, find somebody to help you, like get good chronograph data, get your zero right, get your dope right. Use some good equipment, good ballistic software. I mean, I got hooked on applied ballistics, but like Cameron, he uses Strelok, and it seems to be quite well for him. I've used ballistic arc in the past, geoballistics, but I've found that at like long range, past like 700-800 yards, it doesn't quite match up to applied. And what I've confirmed in the past, applied is a little bit more accurate because I think it accounts more for like aerodynamic jump, and it does a better job of accounting for Coriolis. Borrow gear when you can. And try stuff out, and ask for advice. I mean, people in the gun industry and the gun community are usually, I say 90% of people are really kind, and they will help you out, and they will answer questions. They will not just put you to the side. So
for sure, that was a lot of tips and tricks.
Hey, I mean,
all right.
Look,
it was good content. So, what is one piece of equipment? And for the love of God, don't say a fucking squeeze bag, because everyone says squeeze bag. I just want anything but a fucking squeeze bag. Squeeze bags are awesome. We all know squeeze bags are awesome. What is one piece of equipment that has drastically helped your long range experience?
A quality rangefinder.
Ooh, I think you might be the first one to say that. I personally use a Sig Kilo. What do you use?
So I recently acquired a Terrapin X. So I've used the kick. Yeah. So I've used the Sig Kilos before. Before that, I was using like the Vortex offerings, and the Ranger 1000. Like I could never get it to range past like 600-700 yards accurately.
Really?
Yeah, it just wouldn't do it. Like reflective targets, I couldn't do it. We had a property that we were shooting on where we could go out to a little bit over 900 yards, and I wound up having to Google Earth it to actually figure out what the range was, and then I had to measure my target in my reticle, and then do a manual calculation to kind of get close, because the rangefinder just wouldn't go. It wouldn't go past like 700 yards. It just would not do it.
I have had a couple of rangefinders that were just ineffective.
Two of them, two vortexes. They just wouldn't get out there. They just don't do a good job. The beam divergence is like way too big. It just doesn't work quite well. The Sig Kilo is one that Jonathan has had in the past. We used it actually pretty successfully the last match, and it ranged very well. Okay, but when you've got your target, okay, like your little reticle in the rangefinder, the beam will be somewhere around there, okay, like the center of the beam. So you kind of have to find.
Mine's bottom left.
Yeah, so mine on the Terrapin is like 1 o'clock right here. Okay,
yeah, so, mine's bottom left.
But I went out and I confirmed stuff with that Terrapin at like 2,300 yards, like road signs. I was ranging road signs down the highway.
Yeah,
and like I know how far these things are because I've measured them and things like that. But dude, it's awesome. And like everything that was on the sheet this time, or on the what do you call it, stage list, the matchbook. Sorry, the matchbook. I'm losing my train of thought here. But everything on the matchbook was pretty dang close. I mean, one of the other guys on my squad, I think his name is Matt Taylor. He's a big Knights guy. He posts a bunch of pictures on there of like SR25s and stuff all the time. But he also had a Terrapin, so I got a chance to actually kind of compare our numbers. And we were side by side ranging the same targets, and we were literally off by like a yard. I mean, at the most. So everything was like dead on the money. And those things just work. They've got so much ability to integrate with like Kestrels and other Bluetooth devices and things like that. Like if you've got a Kestrel 5700 Elite, you can literally program it, okay, with your rifle and everything, and then get your atmospherics right there, and then you can use the Terrapin, and it'll send that range over to your Kestrel and give you a firing solution right there.
Yep.
Like it is so cool, and it's such a quality piece of equipment.
And if you pair that with your Garmin Vortex, then it'll be on your wrist.
Well, I mean, I went back to old school, so I'm all analog again. So
all of my calipers are analog, and people freak out because everybody uses digital calipers, and I'm like, yeah, I use analog calipers because I don't need to buy batteries for them, and they're not wrong.
I haven't had to change the batteries in my Michitoyas in a long time.
Michitoyas are good. They're good ones. They're not the Amazon special. So,
no,
all right. So, are there any new developments in your life? Anything exciting? A new car, new house, new project, promotion at work, anything like that?
Promotion at work.
I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works for
No,
you.
man, there ain't no promotion at work. We just kind of all do our own thing. No, I mean nothing terribly exciting. I mean, just biggest thing with me is just it's kind of like leveling off in my life and sort of really focusing on what's important. After COVID all started and everybody started freaking out and all, we had this 15-day to slow the curve and all that kind of crap. We kind of took a back seat, to everything. It was like, hey, we got 2 months worth of content. We're just going to kind of hang out and do whatever and spend time with the family. The kids wound up being out of school. Luckily, I work. My wife does not, so she's usually here to be able to take care of the kids and everything like that. But I sort of started moving back in time. I hadn't had a big garden in a long time, so I started a big garden up in the spring. And I've kind of been revisiting that part of my heritage because my family's been into agriculture for a long time, just on a small scale. But yeah, I had a big garden, 3,600 square foot garden, and we put up 300 jars of food this year. So that's
Nice.
been like the big thing with me. And lately, I've been experimenting with extreme pepper jellies. So like I ordered seven Carolina Reapers the other day and made 6 half pints of pepper jelly. So we're actually going to try that. We're going to try that on a podcast on Friday that we're doing for Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit. So that's our podcast that Eric co-hosts with our buddy Matt, who he served with in Iraq in 06. And he is also our token T-shirt guy, our token Korean T-shirt guy, our apparel and merchandising specialist. But it's a pretty successful podcast so far, and we're only in like 34, 35 episodes, but we've had some pretty awesome guests on there, and we're going to do a flight, and I'm going to be on the podcast this week, so I get to be on the podcast, but then again, I get to edit it and syndicate it just like I do with everything else. So, but yeah, man, nothing crazy. I mean, nothing really worth mentioning. I mean, it's just, like I said, average Joe, just living day by day sort of thing.
So for me, as far as new developments go, I've sold quite a few of the 6mm Cheetah, which is about to be rebadged to 6mm Haze. It looks like some people are interested in my rifle cartridge, and that's why it's going to be rebadged. Is they like 6 Haze better than they like 6 Cheetah. I shot it in the match, so that was the first time that it's ever seen, in a match. So far, the people who have them are really happy with the performance that they're getting out of them and stuff like that. So that's how that's going. The next match that I've got coming up to shoot is Snipers Unknown. I'm shooting Snipers Unknown with Ashton.
Where is that at?
South Carolina.
When about?
October 23rd through the 25th.
What range is it? Just out of curiosity, because I was asked by. Oh, okay. I was asked by a buddy to go shoot a Guardian match up there in November and be like his partner for a team sniper match where you actually have to hike around to the different positions. I'm like, I have no idea how to do that. I guess I'll just wing it and whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually supposed to RO that one if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I'm be an RO at that one.
All right. Well, I'll see you there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another new development. I finally got to drill, so like we haven't been drilling. The Army National Guard has been kind of like we've been doing virtual drills and stuff like that. So we've been doing virtual drills. So a couple of weeks ago, I did my first drill officially as the sniper section leader of the 120th Infantry. And I got there and I tried to introduce myself to my people, and my people weren't there. So I was like, all right, so I'm an Army of 1 here. Awesome. I'm in charge of myself. Awesome. Yeah, so it was interesting. Very first drill with that unit. They seem like a good group of guys. I'm really excited to be doing what I'm doing with them. And so there's that for the Army side. And then as far as work's concerned, I'm just going in, doing my 9-to-5 thing at Worldstone Fabricators, and then, going home. I'm still supposed to be doing something with PSA. They want to put my name on the side of one of their guns, but it's just been – they've been super busy. I'm sure some people have seen like that they've bought the ammunition part of Remington and stuff like that.
Yep. So that's going to be kind of interesting. I mean, PSA in the next decade might turn into a firearms industry powerhouse, and be an actual conglomerate that's actually doing something besides Freedom Group. I mean, look what Freedom Group, did to Remington and Marlin, all the other companies under his belt that drove him into the ground. Marlin Quality Control went down to pot. I mean, I mean, why do you think the JM Marlins are worth so much money these days? I mean, because that's what people want. They want quality. They don't want the piece of crap that they're putting out now. But I hope that they do well with it. I mean, I wish well on everybody, and I hope everything works out for you and the Cheetah.
I appreciate that, man. All right, so do you have any cool toys that you want to talk about before? Because we've got like 3 more things to go over, and like one of them is cool toys. Like, do you have any cool toys you want to talk about real quick? Ham radio?
Well, this is a scanner, but yeah. So
scanners are your cool toys?
Well, so this is a Phase 25 police type scanner. So this we'll scan all the encrypted networks used by the authorities in my area, and I can also plug GPS plug GPS coordinates into it. But you can run a GPS receiver, and you can drive down the road, and it'll pick up anything in your area. And you can also input a zip code wherever you are, and it'll pick up everything in that area. And you can kind of fine tune it and say, okay, I don't need all this, but I need this a little bit here. The others are ham radios. So this is a Kenwood D74. So this is kind of my new big hobby. I became a ham September of last year. So I've been, actually right about a year, September 23rd. But I got all 3 of my licenses at the same time within about 3 weeks. So I play around with ham radio. I use digital modes on HF and talk to people thousands of miles away over a keyboard-to-keyboard application called JS8 Call. Learning about emergency communications, trying to dive a little bit deeper into that sort of thing, and just be a little bit more self-reliant with everything. That's kind of my big goal moving forward with my family, my little circle, is being a little bit more self-sufficient with everything in our life, like learning how to do some of the old things that my grandparents and their parents grew up doing because that's what they had to do to survive. Remember I said I was moving back in time? This is what I'm referring to. I love modern amenities. I really do. But,
who doesn't?
But being able to go to the grocery store and buy everything that you need and just come home on a daily basis, shop day by day, is a luxury, and it's not guaranteed. I mean, look what happened early on with COVID. Everybody started freaking out stuff, buying up masks. Okay, for one thing, buying up cleaning supplies, Clorox wipes, all this kind of stuff. I mean, what happens in mass pandemics and things like that, and when a hurricane comes through, people start panic buying things. Same thing. I couldn't even buy milk. I buy 4 gallons of milk a week for my kids. Okay.
Yeah.
And I couldn't buy the milk that I normally buy because I was restricted. You can only buy 1 gallon of milk. I'm like, dude, I buy 4 gallons of milk all the time. Are you telling me that I can't buy the normal milk that I buy for my family because some idiot is buying 2 buggies worth? So because of the idiots, just like anything else, they limit the people that are good and just, doing the normal thing. Bad guys with guns use guns in a bad way. And then, they have to take your AR because, you might do something bad with it too. But anyways, it's not guaranteed. So I'm like, okay, well, I've got a pretty good stock of food, canned goods, dry goods, whatever, stuff like that. I got a lot of stuff in the freezer. We're just going to kind of sit it out. Whatever. I'm not going to go anywhere. No big deal. I'll just hang out at home. I got plenty of work to do. I don't care. The kids, rode up and down the street on their bikes and stuff, played outside all the time. It's springtime. It's nice outside. I sat outside and smoked my pipe every day. And I'm enjoying life. Hey, whatever, But yeah, moving back in time, dude. That's my big thing. I want solar, I want geothermal, I want a lot of things that I can provide power for myself. I want batteries. I want energy storage capabilities at my house, and I still want to be connected to grid, but I want to be able to disconnect that and do everything I need to do and everything I want to do and still have all the modern amenities, but without having to rely on the system. Okay. That's me. That's moving back in time. Staying with.
No, I like it. It's smart. It's it's prepper-esque, but you're not using that word.
Yeah, I'm not a prepper, man. I mean, I don't think that my grandparents, when they grew up, they weren't preppers, but that's just how they lived. They lived on the farm and they lived off the farm. Okay, the farm provided everything that they needed, and they went into town and they bought sugar, they bought a flour, they bought a few other items and things like that they would use on a regular basis. They bought some of their consumer goods. They bartered for things. So, I mean, bartering is still a thing. I mean, so the other day I bartered for 2 Coltac cheat sheets that we put in our new man cans recently because I couldn't find mine. and I gave Eric like 3 jars of jelly. Like, I'll trade you this jelly for these cheat
I
sheets. Is
love
that okay?
barter. I love
Yeah,
the barter. Love it. So me, I mean, shit, you could probably take advantage of it too. So me being a reloader and somebody who's not a fucking idiot about it, like I load things up to like very safe pressures and stuff like that. I make sure that stuff, like if I'm loading like for 5.56, for example, I'm bumping the shoulder back enough to where it'll function in all of my 5.56s.
Mm-hmm.
I've found a seating depth that's pretty forgiving for all of my guns, and it gives me generally decent accuracy for all of my guns and stuff like that. So I've worked up quite a few loads that I consider to be pet loads.
Mm-hmm.
And including for like a 6.5 Grindle and stuff like that.
Sure.
Like I don't know if you heard at the match or whatever, people were talking about, well, if we were shooting your Grindle loads, and like people were talking about like my ammo, because a lot of people have bought and used my ammo that, like I, as a service to people, obviously I get paid to do it. I'll make ammo for their gun. Like I'll tailor a load to a gun and I'll say, this ammo shoots good in your gun right now. This will shoot good for the life of this ammo. I was like, but then beyond that, like your throat starts to erode and stuff like that. So then it's going to change a little bit, but it'll still probably shoot well. So like, it's all written down and everything like that. That's one of the things that I offer as a service to people. And somebody would ask me, like, would I trade some of my 5.56 ammo for blah? It was like, like random shit that they had or whatever. Like, hey, if you trade me, X amount of 5.56 ammo, like loaded rounds, I'll give you this many. I'll give you a box of 100, projectiles, or I'll give you this much 6.5 Grindle brass, or I'll give you this, or I'll give you that, and whatever. And that's been kind of an interesting thing for me here lately. Is I've got some really good 5.56 loads, like some really really good 5.56 loads.
Yeah.
And like 5.56 is kind of a do-all. Like if you load up a good 77 grain Sierra Match King or a 75 grain Hornady, you can dispatch deer at close range. You can dispatch hogs at medium range. You can dispatch people at at whatever range you can see them. So the 5.56.
Hence the first question.
Yeah, so like it's really easy for me to load that up because I bought a shitload of it whenever it was still plentiful. But I don't really shoot a whole lot of 5.56 anymore.
Yeah.
I'm pretty exclusively shooting cheetah, even though I can't find it on the shelf or anything like that. It's easy for me to load for.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll load up for it, and I shoot it pretty exclusively. But somebody might say, hey, I've got this, and you have 5.56 ammo. Let's work something out here. And then I'll give them 100 rounds of this 5.56 ammo, and they'll give me blah. Whatever blah is.
One thing I've had a problem with lately is I need some more Hornady 6.5 Grindle brass, but it's been kind of non-existent recently too. It's kind of surprising. I'm like, man,
I probably have 1,000 or so pieces of Hornady 6.5 Grindle brass, but almost all of it is 6mm cheetah fire formed or 6mm AR 2B shot in the cheetah.
Hey.
Yeah. So, hey. Well, if you fire form it won't have the right shoulder angle. It'll still be 30 degrees.
But yeah, I've got a little bit of brass. I've got one more box of Lapua that I was using before, but I just copied the Hornady load, and I mean the brass seems to be holding up just fine. I mean, I've got like 200 pieces that I kept from the match. So I'll just kind of keep reloading that. But man, the Lapua, I got 10 firings out of it before with CFE.
Yeah, I've got out of one of my batches, I've got 200. I kneeled after every firing, but I've got one batch that has 8 firings on it, and it's still fine. I had one
I
split.
didn't even anneal. Yeah,
I kneel as a regular practice just because I get more consistent neck tension.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I wanted to see how long the brass would last because I'd never used the Lapua before. And I decided, I'm like, I'm just not going to anneal it and see if I start getting any split necks around like 4 or 5 firings. Nope. I was just setting the shoulder back just enough, like literally 2 or 3 thou. And it's sized beautifully. It shot beautifully. It is amazing brass. And the way I like to think about it, it's not $1 a shot. Okay. It's 10 cents a shot because I got 10 cents of firing out of it, or 10 firings out of it.
Yeah,
So I look at things in the long run.
You said like 2 or 3 thousandths of neck tension or a shoulder bump. I'm sorry.
Yeah, shoulder bump.
Like,
Yeah.
For me, I do like it doesn't matter if I'm loading for a bolt gun or if I'm loading for a gas gun. I go 3 and 3 for everything. So I'm doing 3 thousandths of neck tension and 3 thousandths of shoulder bump just because it's easy numbers. Just go 3 and 3, 3 and 3, 3 and 3 for everything.
You're also using the bushing dies and stuff too. So I'm using Robert Whitley's just custom redding dies based on his chambering, which I was trying to get a reamer from him, but he wouldn't send me a reamer. Like I couldn't buy a reamer from him.
Well, me and you talked about my conversation with him, I believe.
Yeah. So I couldn't get a reamer from him. I never dealt with him directly. I dealt with his son. So I wound up getting on PTNG, and they had a chambering that was very similar. Like you look at the spec sheet, it's like it's different.
6 Grendel or 243 LBC.
243 LBC.
Yeah.
So that's what I wound up. Yeah. I sent my reamer to XCal, and I said, look, just keep the reamer. Just do the barrel and everything for me, and if anybody else needs a barrel, just use the reamer up. I mean, they can get, I don't know, like 20 or so chamberings out of it if they treat it right. Like 15 to 20, something like that.
If they drill first before they do it, or if they have a roughing reamer.
Yeah, so they've got they had some sort of roughing reamer that they would use, and then they would just drop that sucker in there and run it. But
well, the good thing about your cartridge and mine as well is that you can use 7.62 by 39 roughing reamer. You can use a 6.5 Grendel roughing reamer. So you can use or 6 PPC, but you'd have to go a little deeper with it. But you can use the roughing reamer for any of those, and go ahead and get the chamber started, and then you can use the actual whatever your cartridge is, 6AR reamer. And then you can finish it out, and it just be a finishing reamer, and it'll last so much longer. You could make like 40, 50 barrels if that's the way you do it. But unfortunately, like for myself, I didn't buy a roughing reamer. I just bought a regular chamber reamer. So mine, I might get 10 barrels out of, 20 barrels out of, because I'm also doing case gauges with mine.
Okay. Well, that's good. Terry over here is asking if I've got any new lanterns. Not really lanterns. I do have a couple of new stoves. I actually got a Tilly stove from a buddy of mine. It's an old, solid brass base and everything with the big old stove top on the top of it and everything. I need to restore it. And I got a little Optimus camp stove. It's a, what is that sucker? I've got it on my list here. Hang on a sec. What is that thing? It's like an 8R. Yeah, 8R. It's like a little box. It kind of folds out and everything, and you just pop it out, and you got a little tiny camp stove. But I don't really have any room for any more lanterns. So,
all right. So the last question that we have on the for the podcast, or the last thing on the podcast, is: do you have any sponsor shout outs or any company shout outs that you want to do? Any shout outs? It doesn't necessarily have to be a sponsor. It can just be somebody that you're like, that you appreciate yourself as a human being, or anything like that. It can be whatever.
I'll give a shameless plug. I mean, look, so. We don't make anything from this, like for the other channels and everything, but I'm not sure if any of y'all have heard of like Ballistic Ink. So that's sort of the merchandising and like apparel company that we help run, and that's done by our buddy Matt. His family runs a shop up in Atlanta, but we print T-shirts and other apparel for many other. Not only just like 2A advocates, but also many other channels and social media types out there. And every bit of the profit off of those shirts goes right back into those content creators' pockets, okay, to help them support their channels. Because, I mean, we know this day and time, demonetization, gold coining of YouTube and censorship and everything like that is very fervent, and it is alive and well, okay, in the situation that we have right now with the way the mainstream media and everything portrays gun owners. I mean, we're kind of the pariahs of the earth out there. But Ballistic Ink is a good reference, or a good resource for anybody who wants to support their favorite channels and everything, including us. I mean, we're on there as well. But anyways, we don't really, like I said, we don't really have sponsors, man. Like I said, we always kind of do our own thing. We don't really work quite that way. We can't be tied down to like one particular brand or anything and have exclusivity and everything. We have to, maintain kind of an open, I guess like an open portfolio, so we can show what we need to show so the public actually has the information they need to make informed decisions about spending money on firearms and accessories and things like that. I mean, it's pretty important. So
Yeah, so that's a big thing that I get from like, people who comment and shit like that on stuff on my YouTube channel is like, they say, "Oh, we want you to do this more. We would like to see this," and stuff like that. And I hear those things, I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, like I get it, I shouldn't be cussing as much as I do, and I shouldn't, be chewing tobacco, and I should always be wearing eye protection when I'm shooting and shit like that." And like that's all fine and good. I hear it, whatever. But whenever people are telling me how to do my videos or something like that, it's like, okay, well, you're doing this video wrong because, or you need better editing software and this and that and whatever. And I'm like, look, I'm doing this to give you guys information. I don't get paid for any of my YouTube shit. And all of this, the companies that, sponsor me or whatever, as far as my YouTube channel, they sponsor me in ways, but they don't pay me anything, or they don't like give me shit for free. Like I get a discount for some stuff, but they're also getting a service from me in return. So technically it is getting paid for in the form of a service. So that's one of those things that a lot of people just don't understand about, like, like whenever you do an evaluation of a product, they're like, "Oh, well, you got to keep that product that you evaluated, so naturally you're going to give a good review." I'm like, no, the fuck I'm not. They are giving me this to evaluate because I can tear it the fuck apart if I need to. If I break this, it's broke and I don't have to pay for it. That's why I signed that piece of paper that says if this shit's broke, it's mine, But anyway, so these are my sponsors, both for my shooting, for like my regular shooting stuff, my competitive shooting, and for my YouTube channel. So I'm going to give my shout out list and my sponsor list. Title II Manufacturing. I'm the team captain for the Title II Manufacturing shooting team. We do classes. They do gun work. They paint guns. They build guns. We have our own match. It's called the Hood Rats match, like all that good stuff. Bullet Consulting Group, that's Andy Vovu's company. He's the dude who's been spinning up the Cheetah barrels, soon to be Hayes. Control Solutions muzzle brake. I say it all the time. It's like Frank's Red Hot. I put that shit on everything. Todd Resource Management. So Todd Resource Management gives me a place to evaluate products out at distance. So they have a 550-yard range that they allow me to test products at, and it's in Chesterfield, South Carolina. So it's not crazy far from me. It's like, an hour and a half, 2 hours for me. And they have, their own matches and stuff like that. I started shooting the SHATAC series for those guys. But unfortunately, the Army kind of got in the way, and I'm not going to be able to complete the series. So I stopped shooting the series because of the Army. I can't help it that their matches are on my drill weekends almost every time. So I'm missing too many of the matches to be competitive in it. So I'm not going to shoot it. Green Mountain Defense is out of PA. They teach classes. They do their own podcasts and stuff with the Sling and Lead Live podcast with TJ Ramsey, the Lead Sling and Ginger. 903 Tactical out of Texas. It's a gun company. George Gubler's the owner. He was on the show. He's a good dude. Special Forces guy. Sightright. They're actually the dudes who hooked me up with the Shepherd that I ran this weekend that I was so successful with. Resurgence PPG is a charity that I donate to. They help disabled veterans. Fortitude Consulting is a gun company where it's like just training classes and stuff like that. They teach training classes. I've taken a couple of their classes. They're good people. Gil Narvez is the owner. He's actually brought me on as an assistant instructor multiple times. Mm-hmm. Canebrake Consulting. Mike Lewis was actually at the match that we shot. You know Mike, right?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah. So Mike Lewis, he saw a problem with something in the Army, and he actually did something about it. So I can never say enough about that guy. And not only that, he has given me more stuff to evaluate for my YouTube channel and for him, because he knows that I won't blow smoke up his ass. I'll tell him if something's good and effective and awesome, or if it's hot garbage. So I got nothing but love for Mike. Palmetto State Armory. I'm still supposed to be doing something with those guys. I'm supposed to be building a gun that they're going to release as the Hayes rifle from PSA and blah, 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 and whatever.
Well, they got to compete with Hornady, right?
Yeah. But, they're not releasing it in my cartridge.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But they're they want me to just put my name on the side of the one of their guns.
So the Hayes isn't going to get a semi-spec anytime soon.
No, I don't imagine.
God, it's so expensive.
$20,000 from what I've worked up so far. No, I mean just to get the rights to it. Just to get the rights to it, $20,000.
Yeah, you want it semi-spec and everything under the sun. You're probably talking 100 G's. That's
Yeah.
about average.
And
Yeah.
that's why people are like, well, why don't you do this with it? Why don't you do that one? I'm like, because I'm not fucking Hornady. I can't afford to do shit like that. But
Man.
anyway, Amick Guns, Brad Amick, he's a good dude. He's out of South Carolina. Panteo Sportsman's Club. They host matches. They're a gun range. They're super awesome people.
Good Lord, man.
Shooter
Can't you just run like credits? Like
you'd think. Trust me, I get talked to about this every time. Shooter Ready Apparel. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. They make awesome shirts. I made a commercial for them. They're good people. Criterion Barrels. They're awesome barrels. Boogaloo Gun Oil. Love Boogaloo Gun Oil. It's good shit. I ran it the whole match. And my
Boogaloo Gun Oil.
Boogaloo. If I had a bottle of it, I'd be holding it up right now like a
Boogaloo.
Boogaloo. Yeah.
That is hilarious. All right, I have to look that up.
I made a commercial for them, so look up my commercial. It's hilarious.
Oh my god.
Bluegrass Targets. They're I don't know where the fuck he's out of, but I shot it with up to a 50 BMG, and it didn't fuck up the target. The only thing that even put a chip in it was armor piercing rounds, and it just chipped it. And Quantified Performance. That was the match that me and Chad shot, and that was where we met, and that's what solidified our lovely relationship that we have. We're a thing. We're a thing is what we are.
Well, there's not many wildcat enthusiasts out there. It's kind of like it's like a FUD thing or something. Like 6AR. What are you talking about? You talking about that new Hornady cartridge? No. I'm talking about the cartridge that's been around longer than the Valkyrie, and no one ever heard of. Necking something down to make it better,
make it mobile. Well, I found out just like a year ago, because I got a whole bunch of my grandfather and great grandfather's reloading supplies like a year ago. And I had no idea about this, but apparently my grandfather and my great grandfather were both wildcatters, and I had already started working on my rifle cartridge before I'd heard about that. So I was like, I guess it was just in my blood.
Yep. Everyone needs this.
Cartridges of the world.
You'll find some things in here that you didn't know existed, and you're like, that sounds kind of like something that I read about just the other day, but it was made back in the 20s. Maybe they knew something back then.
Like 277 Wolverine?
Yes, that. And there's one that's really interesting. Let me find it real quick. Keep talking. I'm sure you have more sponsors.
Nope, that was all of them.
Oh, that was it?
Now we're just waiting on you. Everybody's just staring at you now.
Yeah, hang on. Let me find it real quick because it's something that Ray introduced me to.
I'll talk a minute about the setup that I ran. So at Quantified Performance, I ran this Title II Manufacturing Hayes rifle. So Title II Manufacturing released a line of rifles. They made 10 as a limited run with my name on the side of them. And this one was mine. And I ran it. I had to swap out the handguard because I was running a cheetah barrel or a 6mm Hayes, whatever you want to call it. And gun shoots stupid awesome. I ran a control brake on it, mag pull bipod. I had a bubble level on it right there, as you can see. I ran the Shepherd 1-8, which is one of my favorite LPVOs, and a brass catcher. And the load that I was running in the match wasn't even really like a hot load for me at all. I was only pushing the 90 grain burger like 2740 or something like that. So not a hot load, nothing crazy. It was just a regular ass load that I shoot through it. And I ran that the whole match, and it was enough to get me the place that I did, which was, as I had said before, 2nd place for my division, 7th place overall. But I'm really excited to be shooting the Sierras. Once I start shooting these 95 grain Sierras through it, it's gonna be a game changer. What you got for me? What you got?
All right, so in the advent of like necking down cartridges, the 250 Savage. So this was introduced in 1915. So you push an 87 grain pill to like 3,000 feet per second. So like it's not a short action or anything like small frame like a Valkyrie or anything like that, but just wild. Like this is the time when people were freaking out about cartridges that were going 2,000 feet per second. Okay, and this comes out and it's moving 87 grain pill at 3,000 feet per second. Okay, but 1915, necking down other cartridges and getting stupid velocities and wildcatting, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It's nothing new. And if you look back at history, like people see this like 6AR and stuff, but they don't even know about the 6 PPC. I I'm like, dude, the 6 PPC is like the Mac Daddy,
The
like,
granddaddy
you
of it.
know, bench press, cartridge ever. It's like the best thing out there. It is so laser beam accurate, and it's just like the best of everything. It's the best brass, the best powder column, the best neck, the neck length, the neck height, or I'm sorry, the neck height, the grip on the projectile size, how it sits down in that powder column, just everything about it is perfect.
Yeah,
And
it's
like
optimal for precision.
yes, everything tries to be that. I mean, that's why the 6.5 Creedmoor is such a popular and well-rounded cartridge, because it has all those things. It's got the proper shoulder angle, it's got the proper powder column, and I always have to go back to the Valkyrie when I talk about this kind of stuff, Cameron. Okay, I know you don't have very many viewers out here, but just between like you and me, All right,
just between us, our 2 viewers.
All right, so who had a contract, or a potential contract on ammunition, for 6.8 spec? Okay, back when it was like a hot topic, federal among other people. So who had tons of brass laying around in 6.8 spec that, hey, we need to do something with it. Like, or the brass drawing machines to be able to draw the brass up. Well, with some slight changes, guess what? That brass can be drawn into 224 Valkyrie. And like, we've got all these components. Okay, we've got tons and tons of barrels that are 1-in-7 twists that aren't chambered. So, hey, let's chamber them in something crazy and new and try to make it work. I just feel like it was a way to like kind of get a cash cow. And it was brought to market way too soon, because the market was real slow. I mean, it was very, very slow at that time.
It had been a while since, there were any like, revolutionary things that really come out as far as rifle cartridges are concerned. And, that's why, and I said it when it first came out. I was like, the 6.8 cartridge case is not conducive of that caliber. I was like, that's not. Yeah, I was like, it's not a good case for that caliber. I was like, if they really want to do that right, they need to do something like a 224 Grendel, and they really need to hit that hard. And they did.
And that had been out and had been wildcatted for years prior by Whitley.
Robert Whitley, yeah.
So I first learned about him, like I said, when I started researching other wildcats, in that sort of realm, and I came across it, and I was fascinated by what he had to offer. But I will tell you, like we talked about before, the data that he had on his website is like, ooh, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, those are like, that was how I tried to start. That was before I had quick load. I was like, I'm going to go down like 2 grains, and even 2 grains down, I was blowing primers and shit.
Yep.
I was like, where the fuck did these numbers come from? So I have no idea where Robert Whitley came up with those numbers, but whatever.
I don't know.
I've had people ask me, and it's really close to what you're talking about right now. You were talking about the applied ballistics books and stuff like that. I've read all the applied ballistics books. I used the last deployment that I was on academically. I read all the applied ballistics books. I tried to read as much as I could about rifle cartridges and stuff like that. And one of the things that I kind of decided while I was overseas, I was just like, just for fun kind of thing. I was like, I'm going to design my own rifle cartridge. And what I did to do that was I looked at a shitload of modern and old rifle cartridges to figure out what they had in common for certain things, like why certain rifle cartridges were conducive of good accuracy, why some were conducive of good low standard deviations, why some of them were super easy to load for and some are a pain in the ass and stuff like that. And I started to see commonalities between like bench rest cartridges and then like the long range cartridges that we shoot today versus like the really old bench rest cartridges like 6 PPC and 22 PPC. And then I started comparing those to modern rifle cartridges like 6.5 Grendel, which is one of my favorites. And I was playing with numbers, just drawing it out on a piece of graph paper because I didn't really have software like that overseas. You just don't have that kind of shit with you. And I was playing with a lot of stuff, and I was like, okay, well, what if I took this and I changed this angle to this, and I changed this dimension to this, and I did this and this. And I was like, then that would give me the neck length like this, and it would give me the this of that, and it would give me the shoulder of that to give you the low standard deviations. And that's why now, you can basically, with that, 90 grain burger, or with the 95 grain Sierra, or with the 105 grain burger, or the 105 grain Hornady, or the 87 grain Hornady, you can take that, throw AR comp in there, seat the bullet off the lands, anywhere off the lands, just about like 20 thousandths plus off the lands, and go shoot it. And it's going to be sub MOA, and you're going to have sub 10 SD as long as you're using an extruded temperature stable powder.
That's
And
what I get is
these
about
were all
8.
things that I just researched the shit out of until, I was like, why don't I just do this thing myself? And I talked about it on a podcast that I was brought on to, and they were like, well, why don't you just do it then? And I was like, why don't I just do it? So I got the reamers from PTG. Took them 3 tries to get it right, but I got my reamers from PTG, and then had a couple of prototype barrels spun up, shot them. They did everything I expected them to and more. They actually exceeded my expectations because I'd bumped the numbers down, and then I did my official release, and then Hornady comes out with the ARC 3 days later.
So
I was like,
So, when the ARC was announced and everything, I had seen Firearms Blog, post a copy of the Sammy spec drawing for it. I'm like, like, all right, so
20,000 shorter.
Yeah, so I had heard from some of the other people in the industry that I know, I can't say who, but I had heard that an ammo manufacturer was going to be releasing some derivative of the 6AR. Okay, and it wasn't going to be a 6AR specifically. And it's just funny, all that stuff kind of came out like after I started posting a bunch of stuff on it. We did a video on the 6AR and everything, and I mean, I shot a sub MOA group at 500 yards in the opening shot of that video with 105s.
Yep. I've seen that video multiple times. Trust me.
It's just such a fantastic cartridge. And so my thing, I didn't go with, the enhanced Wildcats that Whitley went out, like with the turbo and the turbo 40 and stuff, because I didn't want the extra step of fire forming. That's the time suck for me is fire forming. I like to be able to size my brass down and have a fire forming load, but yet it performs within 15 feet per second, of my final load.
You want to hear something crazy?
So
I shot the whole match with my fire forming load.
Okay. Well, good.
Yeah, the quantified performance match. That's why I had my brass catcher on the whole time.
Okay.
I was like, these are cheetahs now.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, dude, I have to catch all that brass because it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but I run one of the, what is that sucker called? It's that stupid expensive one.
I remember you talking about it the first time I saw you, and then I saw it on the video, and I was like, Jesus, that looks expensive.
Yeah, dude, they're like $200. They are not cheap. What is that joker? Tactical Brass Recovery.
Yeah.
But I've used some cheap ones before, but I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm buying this one. So I've got a special little like M-lock rail section that I mount on the forward rail, and it's got to be in the proper position, okay, to be able to get that brass catcher where I need it. But dude, that thing is awesome. Possum. It's
awesome.
Worth every penny. Yeah, it's worth every penny. But I try to catch on my brass. Now the last match, I was on my that lot that I used for that match. I was on my 9th firing, and I knew that I was only getting 10 firings out of them, and I had a couple of weird anomalies going on with my brass. I'm like, you know what, screw it. I just opened it up and I just let my brass fly.
Just let it hang.
Yeah. And I remember picking up the previous match. I was picking up a bunch of brass because I forgot to run a brass catcher, and I went up at home with a bunch of 22 Grendel brass that Lane had been using. So I'm sitting there sizing brass. I'm like,
let me open this bastard back up. Yep. Lane is good people. I love Lane.
Oh,
he ended up he was second place for his division too. So me and him got a picture together where we were like right before we go to walk the prize table. It was like me and Lane got a picture together. We go inside and we fucking sprinted for the same thing, the scope that was on the prize table. I grabbed it and he was like, shit. And then he looks over and there was another one right next to it. And he was like, just grabbed it real fast. So we went and got our picture took and then we fucking left.
Yeah, it was cool. I didn't get to see the rifles or anything that they had on the prize table this time, but the last match, they had like some barrels, they had optics, They had receiver sets. I know one guy walked out of there with some really nice receiver set, and they had this AR upper on the table. I'm like, swipe. And I got home, I looked it up. I'm like, man, this thing's pretty nice. I haven't even shot the dang thing. It's still in my it's still in my safe.
Yeah, the prize tables at QP have always been pretty awesome. All right. Yeah. So do you have any final thoughts for the 3 viewers that are still with us that are probably glazed over? They're probably dead, honestly.
Man, but I'm dead. This has been a 14-hour day for me so far. Actually longer than that. No, man, I'm good. No final thoughts. I'm gonna get some coffee and go hang out with the wife and go to bed.
Drinking
and
coffee.
And then I gotta get up in the morning. Yeah. Oh yeah, I drink coffee all the time.
I have to get up early too. But anyway, all right. Well, guys, we really appreciate you coming out. Hope to see you guys at a match sometime. Drop some comments or whatever, and I'll send Chad a message and tell him, hey, you guys are still thinking of him or whatever. But Chad, I really appreciate having you on here. Ashton had some stuff he had to handle, so he had to dip out. He shot me a text message and was like, hey, I got something going on.
No worries.
So he had to dip out early, unfortunately. But I really appreciate you coming onto the podcast, and everybody just be